The LouieTeeNetwork is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.
Who else could it be? Me, you're me. Louie T, welcome to the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your Commander-in-Chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Got an interesting show for you tonight. Fresh off of Commander Log episode number 5. So they dropped the 5th episode, the 5th and final episode of Commander Log. And conveniently, the final week before the final Thursday, rather. Well, there's going to be one more Thursday where technically no players will be in the building. But next week, they'll be preparing for the rookies to show up. The veterans will show up a couple days thereafter. And then we're off and we're running for training camp. And it begins. So they dropped the final episode of the Commander's Log, which kind of chronicled the rookie class. We had already been introduced to the first round pick, obviously Emmanuel Forbes Jr. So they kind of went through the other picks, rounds 2 through 7, and their process of getting drafted, the phone call, all that stuff, kind of the thought process behind drafting each player. We heard from Tim Gribble and some of the other guys that were influential in that process of getting those guys drafted and what the thought process was behind, those guys' selections. I remember I kept telling you about, I don't want to say too much because I'm going to give you a react video to the final episode. So you'll probably get that over the weekend. So if you haven't seen it, I won't spoil it for you. We'll talk about all those things. We'll discuss all of that in the react video. So go ahead, have an opportunity to watch Commander's Log episode 5. It was a good episode to wrap up the series for this season. This is the second year they've done the Commander Log episodes. I really enjoyed this season in particular. But in any event, I wanted to start the show off tonight with a conversation that I started probably, 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago, about, protecting your space, right? Protecting your time, okay? Because time is a resource that is non-renewable. Once you waste it, you can't have it back. So I told you guys, be on the lookout. This is clickbait season. There is nothing going on right now but the rent, okay? Ain't nothing going on but the rent. So everyone's looking for to conjure up a reason for you to click on their article. I think I might have found the worst clickbait of 2023 in terms of the Washington Commanders. I think I have found the worst clickbait I've seen all offseason, and there's been plenty. And I was really turned off by the whole Kareem Hunt conversation. I thought that was clickbait. And look, ultimately, if something happens to a running back here, I think Kareem Hunt is a name that is of interest because of his background with Eric Bieniemy. But if we're totally healthy at the running back position, there is no room for Kareem Hunt here. I thought that was total clickbait. Okay, but we'll see. People start to believe things when Josina Anderson says it. I'm not buying the hype. So, but the absolute worst clickbait that I saw this offseason, I just saw it the other day. I think it was like 2 days ago. Washington Commanders should sign Malik Willis. What? What? If that isn't the biggest crock of bullshit that I've heard all season, I don't know what is. And anybody running with that trash, come on, man, you can do better than that. I saw that. I didn't even click on the article. I didn't even give them the time of day. Normally, I said, you know what? I know this is clickbait. I'm going to click it anyway because I want to see what kind of foolishness they putting out in the atmosphere. Let me see what these clowns are talking about. I wasn't even giving this one the time of day. I didn't even give them the clip that I normally give them. I can't help foster clickbait like that. I can't help spread that foolishness. Even talking about it now is giving it more legs than it deserves. But just to put this thing to bed because it's so egregious, let me just go ahead and say this. Let's just cut this thing down at the knees and talk about why this makes absolutely zero sense for the Commanders, okay? And really absolutely zero sense for the Tennessee Titans, if you want to be honest. Let's start there from the Titans' perspective. Yeah, you drafted Will Levis in the second round of the 2023 NFL draft. You've already got Ryan Tannehill still on the roster as a veteran hanging on. And so where does Malik Willis fit into all of this? I get it. You got a new GM. He didn't draft Malik Willis. So, you know, he can kind of get lost in the sauce here. He can kind of get caught up in the wash. I get it. We know that this is a business and these things happen. But Ryan Tannehill is on his last legs in Tennessee. I'd be shocked if he made it through this entire season because I think the Titans are going to suck. Again, like last year, they surprised me by playing as well as they did for the mid portion of the season. Because remember, they started off poorly, and I told you guys, I kept saying, I told you. Then they bounced back after starting, I think, 0-2. They might have started 0-2 or 1-3, something to that effect. And then they got hot, ran off like 5 or 6 in a row. And they were 7-4 at one point before absolutely having the wheels fall off of their season. And it really happened after that Eagles game. They lost to the Eagles. They fired their GM, and it seemed like all hell broke loose with the Titans. But anyway, the new GM comes in, drafts him a quarterback. Tannehill's still holding on. They don't really know where Malik Willis fits into all of this. I actually heard he was having a strong offseason, but that's nor here nor there. Not our problem, right? At the end of the day, no one really wants to carry 3 quarterbacks on the roster if you don't have to. We had to do it last year. When you draft a young quarterback, that's a part of the process. If I'm Tennessee, am I really looking to only have 2 quarterbacks on the roster and releasing Malik Willis? For what? The man is going into the second year of a 4-year contract. What's the purpose behind that? I don't understand it. Even if he's not the future, even if it is Will Levis, why not keep Malik Willis there? Just in case Will Levis isn't any good, or Malik Willis develops into something and you can trade him and get something back for him in return. It just doesn't make sense on the part of the Titans to cut him. That's number one. No one's trading for Malik Willis. Hell, the 49ers can't even find a trade partner right now for Trey Lance. He was the number 3 overall pick in the NFL draft in 2022. So if you can't find a trade partner for the 3rd pick in the 2022 NFL draft, what makes you think you're going to find a trade partner for a 3rd round pick in the 2023 draft, which was a way weaker draft class of quarterbacks? Just doesn't make any sense. So that right there in itself, to me, doesn't make any sense on the part of the Tennessee Titans. But then you take it a step further if you're talking about Washington's perspective. So let's say the Titans aren't impressed with Malik Willis. He doesn't have a great offseason or training camp in preseason, and they do cut him. Okay. He may get an opportunity somewhere else. I don't doubt that. It won't be in Washington, though. Where's the psychological sense in that? Bringing him here to Washington. Now, if you're saying to yourself, maybe he'll be a quality NFL backup, and this is a system that might fit his skill set. Okay, cool. But are you keeping 3 quarterbacks on the roster this year? That's not the plan. Okay. You're not cutting another player at the expense of holding on to a 3rd quarterback that's not even your stuff. Also, keep in mind, we already got a quarterback from the 2023 NFL draft. Okay. Or 2022, excuse me. And Trey Lance was from the 2021 draft, not the 2022 draft. We already got a 2022 NFL draft quarterback on the roster. In case you didn't know or haven't heard, his name's Sam Howell, and he's going to start this year. You don't need another one, okay? So that makes zero sense from Washington's perspective. You're not carrying 3 quarterbacks. You did that last year. You took up a roster spot because you drafted Sam Howell and you weren't going to cut him. You're not doing that again. That's why you went out and got Jacoby Brissett, so that you could only have 2 quarterbacks on the roster, a guy that can mentor Sam Howell, and you're going to go through this season, hopefully with 2 quarterbacks, and never have to have Jacoby Brissett leave the bench unless we're blowing the doors off of an opponent at some point during the season. So again, it doesn't make any sense from Washington's perspective. Just stupid shit, man. Again, protect your space, protect your time, okay? We only get 24 hours in a day. Don't waste it on shit like that, okay? Anyway, I digress. Another little piece of another little tidbit that I wanted to get to. I know you guys have seen Dan trying to make it tough on the way out. I told you guys this had to be a conversation we had 3 months ago, right? I said, look, Dan's not going to make this easy. He's going to go out kicking and screaming. If you think Dan is just going to take his 6 Billy, sail off into the sunset, and do this thing quietly, you haven't been here long enough to experience the full Daniel Snyder experience, okay? You haven't been here to experience the full Daniel Snyder experience. So trust and believe he's going to make this incredibly hard on the way out. Now, at the end of the day, he's trying to bully these NFL owners who want him out desperately. He knows that, so he's trying to leverage that into him getting essentially immunity from anything that he's done on the way out. And this is the thing that, and Daniel Snyder knows this, he should know this himself best, because as human beings, first and foremost, we don't like being told what to do, okay? Nobody likes being bossed around and bullied and told what to do. Sometimes you just got to take it. You have superiors. They tell you what to do. You do it. Your parents tell you what to do. You do it, right? You get to a certain age and you're like, hey, mom, dad, I got this. Back up, right? Because you don't want to be told what to do, all right? As young as I can, as far back as I can remember, when I was a little kid, you know what one of the most famous sayings on the playground was where I was growing up? You can't tell me what to do. You're not the boss of me. You're not the boss of me. Even when you're a little eeny teeny little lad, you don't want people telling you what to do. So imagine what happens when you get a lot older and you get a bunch of money and you're filthy rich, you're wealthy. You know what wealthy people don't have happen to them very often? People telling them what to do. So imagine another person telling you what you're going to do, and you have a ton of money. It doesn't happen. Not very often. So Daniel Snyder is trying to tell these owners what they're going to do as he's exiting stage left. If you want me to leave, this is what you have to do for me. And the owners are like, who are you to tell us what we are going to do? We ain't got to do shit. If we want to vote your ass out of here, we can vote your ass out of here. Now, I suggest you take your 6 Billy and kick rocks, all right? Snyder's not going to renege on the deal, nothing crazy, because the next closest deal wasn't even close to this offer that he's getting. He's not leaving this offer on the table. But yes, he's going to make things slightly complicated on the way out in typical Daniel Snyder fashion. In any event, I'm not tripping. Neither should you. I'm hoping a week from, what's today? A week from today is the 20th, which is when we will hear about the meeting that is taking place and to decide if new ownership group has all of their ducks lined up and in order to have this thing pushed through. If not, they have another date set for August the 8th. And so we'll figure out all of the logistics as to if it's going to get done in July or if it'll happen in August. It's going to happen, though. So I feel really good knowing that new ownership is about to come in. I'm a little anxious, a little nervous, because I don't know what they're going to do and how they're going to react. And at the end of the day, it can't be any worse than Dan. That's what I've told myself. And it can't be. It can only equal Dan. And if we have to go through that, it will be a miserable existence. I can't see this next ownership group being anywhere near as bad as Daniel Snyder. So we'll see what the hell goes on and what happens. But no worries, no need to fret. Okay, I don't think anything is going to come about that situation. Anyway, I think that was the last bit of Commanders information that I wanted to bring to your doorstep today. I think that is it. I think there was one more thing, actually. Oh, yes, the quarterback documentary on Netflix is what I wanted to bring up. I'm going to be talking about that documentary on Monday on the LouieTeeNetwork podcast. For those of you who are interested in chopping it up and talking about it, I'm giving everybody the weekend to watch it. I haven't watched it yet, but I'm going to binge it over the weekend. I've seen the preview already. I'm amped for it. A lot of people are bringing up Daron Payne. He was on the preview. His hit of Kirk Cousins where Kirk didn't get up. Remember, we knocked Kirk out of that game for 2 plays. There was Nick Mullins in the game, if you don't recall, for 2 plays. But Kirk torched us in that game, just in case you forgot. He's a tough SOB. So looking forward to that series. And I'm thinking we should be up there quite a bit because we played against Mariota. We played against Kirk. And if they want to get particular, we played against Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes in the preseason. So we could be up there multiple times. We'll probably be up there at least twice, the Minnesota game and the Atlanta game. So I expect to see Washington up there at least twice. But in any event, I digress. That should be a great watch. If you haven't watched it, do yourself a favor, watch it over the weekend, and then come chop it up with the kid on Monday. I'll have plenty to say, and hopefully you do as well. So my biggest question of the night, training camp is nearing, all right? We're essentially a week out from the rookies showing up. Next Friday, the rookies will report to camp. They'll get logged in. Everything will get situated. The veterans will show up on Monday. I think it's Monday for the veterans, might be Sunday. And then they're going to start that week of work the following week. So this is the last full week we will have with essentially no news, really. So in the spirit of that, as we get closer to the start of training camp, I want to know what your confidence level is right now with the squad as we head into training camp. So tonight, I've got a confidence index that I'm going to post to you guys, and I want to know how you guys feel. So the scale is 1 to 10. 1 being no confidence whatsoever. 10 being the ultimate confidence. I am 100% sure that this player or this group is going to get it done. I have no doubts whatsoever. All right. Obviously, 5 is in the middle. I'm not sure. We'll see. So forth and so forth. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I've got 5 categories, entities, groups, etc., that I want to discuss with you tonight. And I want to know how you guys feel. Okay. So I'm going to start with the first topic of discussion tonight on the confidence index. And that is head coach Ron Rivera. On a scale of 1 to 10, what is your confidence level in Ron Rivera getting it done in 2023 and saving his job? Last week, I was talking to my guy Ethan on Twitter. He DM'd me and he was like, yo, I was listening to Ron on John Kimes' podcast, and Ron sounds rejuvenated. He is allowing EB to kind of take control of practice. It's taken a lot off of his plate. I don't think Ron is going to be as burnt out this year. Look, I don't think a lot of people understand the level of stress that they dealt with dealing with the Dan Snyder shit. And just the fact that Snyder's no longer here, Ron looks like a different dude. I told you all offseason, Ron sounds like a different dude. You would think that Ron just got here and that his job is safe and that Ron doesn't have a care in the world. Ron is walking around as if he just went to the NFC Championship game and he's got nothing but the utmost confidence in what this team's going to do in the upcoming season, despite the fact that he's turned over the coaching staff, a huge chunk of it. He is starting a first-time, starting quarterback in his second year, in his second straight year with a different offense in Sam Howell. And he needs this season to be really, really good, a playoff season, probably to save his job. You wouldn't be able to tell talking to Ron, listening to him talk, looking at him. He looks refreshed. And the fact that Eric Bieniemy's taking a lot off of his plate and allowing him to just oversee everything and be more of a supervisor than, having his hand in everything and being a micromanager, I think that could help him as well. So Ethan is like, I expect the best of Ron this year because he doesn't have to worry about as much. He just gets to focus on the things that a head coach should. That's good logic. We'll see if that works. What is your confidence level in Ron Rivera? All right. So I'm just going through a few of these numbers here. Metaphor says 6. Damon Bullock says 6. AJ says 7.5 because of O-line concern. As a coach, an 8. That's pretty high. TJ Julius says 7.5. Shay Robinson says a 5. King of the North says 6. Kevin the PRF says a 5. Ant JJ says an 8. Again, that's high. I don't know if you're going to get any higher than an 8. Humble King, 5.5. Kevin Hooker says 7. Fat Boy V says 6. Ben Hanniger says 6. Mason Harris says 6. Mega 412 says 4.5. Johnny Boy says 3. Daryl Holmes says 6. Justin Evans says 8. Ghost Rider says 6.5. Ephraim says 6. Tony Barefoot says 6.5. Stefan says a 5. So Johnny Boy has the lowest so far, I think, at a 3. And Aunt JJ and I think there was somebody else with the 8. Aunt JJ, Justin Evans, and AJ all have an 8. Darnell Kelly says 6. Victor Fowler says somewhere in between 5 and 6. So that's a good number for Ron. I think somewhere in that 5 to 6 range is probably where most people will fall. For me, I actually am somewhere in that 6 to 7 range. The 5 says that there's a chance that it could go south and it could quit on you. I just don't ever see a Ron Rivera coach team doing that to him. So I think he's a little bit higher than a 5. I think that because of all of the shit he's had to deal with here, and not having to deal with that anymore, I'm actually anxious to see what he looks like in a situation that's kind of a clean slate for him, honestly speaking. So this will be a big year for him because there was a lot of pressure on him. There's a lot of pressure on him every year, not just coaching the football team. As much as he tried to keep the message on football, I just want everybody to focus on football. It was impossible for him to do that with Daniel Snyder as his owner. Impossible. There was a new story every single week. Every single week, there was always something, and Ron had to deal with it. Even if it was something as stupid as the whole conversation around whether Daniel Snyder pushed the Carson Wentz trade or not, and Ron having to come out and say, I did that. I watched the film. You know, all of that bullshit. I mean, it's always something. So I think this clean slate, not having to deal with the questions, not having to deal with the distractions, just going out and coaching ball like the other 31 teams in the league and their head coaches get to do. I want to see what Ron does in this environment. So I'm giving him the benefit. He'll get a 7 from me, but I can understand the 6s, the 5s. I don't think you should be any lower than a 5, but because he's at bare minimum, he's an average coach. I don't think he's a below average coach, but that's my opinion. Anyway, I digress. All right, so next up on the confidence index is Eric Bieniemy. This is interesting. Scale of 1 to 10. What is your confidence level in Eric Bieniemy going into this training camp and into this season? I want to see what you guys have to say. Leave it down in the comment section. What is your confidence level in Eric Bieniemy? Scale of 1 to 10. All right. So Ephraim says an 8. Damon Bullock says 20. He's doubling up. Kamari Cotton says 8. Mega says 7. Johnny Boy says a 10. Asan says a 7. Cold Pillow says 8. Miss Perry says 7. It's Uncapped says 8. Ephraim says 8. Ben says 7. Fat Boy V says 7.5. Shay Robinson 9. Kevin Hooker 10. District of Command says 8.5. Stefan says 7. 8. Mr. Ron B says 7. Aunt JJ says 10. Kevin the PRF says 9. Justin Evans says easy 10. Gerard Johnson says 8. Tony Barefoot says 7.5. Victor Fowler says 7 plus 3. So a 10. Humble King 9. Daryl Holmes 7.5. Darnell Kelly says a 10. King of the North 7. Quentin Ruiz 8.6. Leon Williams says 8. TJ Julius says a 6.5. Jay Martell says 10. So I'm fascinated by everyone's confidence in Eric Bieniemy. Now, just like you can probably be fascinated in my confidence in Sam Howell. I'm fascinated by everyone's confidence level in Eric Bieniemy. I'm not as confident. I feel really good about him. I feel like he's going to come in here and definitely change the game for us. But I also want to see what it looks like and see how the vision that he has for this offense and how he wants it to be run and how he'll call games. I want to see how all of that flows with him. But I definitely think he's the right man for the job. I'm excited about what he potentially could bring to the table. What I'm probably most shocked by is how many people want him to be the head coach without ever seeing him in that capacity. I love the fact that we can gauge him as a coordinator based off of what he did in Kansas City, because he was a coordinator in Kansas City. Now, we can debate on whether he had full autonomy, whether he was truly the play caller, or how all of that worked, what the process was. So that's one of the debates of when he was in Kansas City as the OC. But he was an offensive coordinator. You can say he didn't do this or he didn't do that, or he did do this or he did do that, but he was an offensive coordinator. That was his title. All right. We don't know what Eric Bieniemy, the head coach, will look like. Just because you're a good coordinator doesn't make you a great head coach. So I've been really fascinated with those of you who automatically want to fire on and hitch your wagon to Eric Bieniemy. That has been the fascinating part. But he's a hell of a motivator, which is part of the job description of being a head coach, or in this case for him just being a coordinator. But he's getting a lot of the head man responsibilities. Like I said, Ron is really grooming him to be a head coach. If you're Ron, you have to be careful. And I don't think Ron's thinking like this, because Ron is thinking, if he is successful here, it's going to help save my job. That's the way Ron's looking at this. I don't think Ron thinks he's preparing his replacement. It's the same thing in Los Angeles with the Chargers. You know, Brandon Staley is on the hot seat. They blew a 27-point lead in the playoffs last year. He's on the hot seat. So him bringing in Kellen Moore could easily be him bringing in his replacement. It's the same situation here in Washington. If he's not careful, because every team with a young quarterback wants to hitch their wagon to a young offensive mind. Kellen Moore is the exact definition of a young offensive mind. And if he's able to make beautiful music with Justin Herbert this year, Brandon Staley may have brought in his replacement unknowingly. It's the same conversation we've been having in Dallas. The reason they keep keeping the former Falcons head coach Dan Quinn around, by bringing Dan Quinn on, Mike McCarthy might be sleeping with the enemy. Literally have that guy in his building thinking he's guy's going to help save my job, and he may ultimately be there to take it. It could be the same situation here in Washington if you're not careful. But I don't think Ron sees it that way. If we're successful, he'll get his own job and I'll still be here. Anyway, we'll see what happens. So a lot of confidence in Eric Bieniemy. And I'm not mad at that. My confidence level in EB right now is somewhere in that 7-8 range. Probably 7. It's right there. He's going to have to show me a little bit more. I want to give him an 8, but my stubbornness won't allow me to do it. I got to see it, but I'm bullish on the fact that he's the right man for the job. I just want to see how this all works, what this offense looks like, you know, how he distributes touches, how he maximizes players and their skill sets. That was something that Scott Turner failed to do. You know, even though we were promised this, we were promised that Antonio Gibson was going to be this crazy weapon. We never got that. You know, we know that Curtis Samuel can be this dangerous weapon. Yeah, we really never got that. You know, they ran the same 2 or 3 plays with him in the backfield, never really unleashed him the way that, like, he should be catching wide receiver screens. Curtis Samuel is a problem with the ball in his hands. I mean, how many of those did he catch last year? Not very many. We weren't a great screen team anyway, but anyway, I digress. Confidence index. Next topic of discussion. What is your confidence level going into camp, Sam Howell? What is your confidence level going into camp with Sam Howell? This should be interesting. I am high. I know I'm high on. You see that? I'm high on Sam Howell. So, that's not something you have to question with me. But I want to see how you guys feel about Sam. And I expect some low numbers in here too, as well. Johnny Boy 26 says 9. He's the guy. Kevin Hooker says 7.5. DeAndre Taylor says 8. Damon Bullock says 9. Mega says 6 to 7. Red Wings 01 says 8.5 to 10. Victor Fowl says 7. Humble King 6. Oz Duke 7. J Martell 8. District of Command 7. Metaphor says 10. Frost 40 below says 7. Tony Barefoot says 8.5. Ephraim says 6. It's Uncapped says 6. Aunt JJ says 7.5. B Schmitty says 9. Stefan 7. Cold Pillows 7. Mr. Ron B 7. Kevin the PF writes 7. AJ says 8. Victor Fowl says 7. Shay Robinson 7. Fat Boy V 6.5. Darnell Kelly 7. King of the North 5. Ben Haniger says 8. Miss Perry 7. Justin Evans says easy 8. Leon Williams 8. Say less 25. All right. TJ Julius says a 9. Duncan Wright, I see you trolling over here. I see you trolling. Welcome back. Big Daddy Butts 5. Josh Denton 9. Luza 8. Sam Suri 8. Horace Mebane 9. Frost 40 below says 7. Joe Rockhead 9.5. So those are some pretty lofty numbers. I'm actually excited about those numbers. Sometimes I have to keep in mind that I'm talking to y'all all the time. We're in our little bubble, right? So we can be like-minded sometimes, which is why I always encourage, if you're not in the same mindset as I am or we are, don't be afraid to speak your truth. Because sometimes you need someone going against the grain when we're all kind of caught in our little bubble here, when we're, speaking positivity and understanding. I know I don't have to preach this to y'all. Y'all know me well enough to know I'm not the one that's going to be ultra positive, rose-colored glasses when the shit's not, the way it's supposed to be. So y'all already know how I operate. But this is the time of the year where we do operate in that space, where we do get excited, where everything's sort of positive, on the up and up, and we're really excited about what the upcoming season can bring. And sometimes you can lose sight of reality. All right. There are problems with the roster. There are problems with the way things are constructed. And sometimes you can lose sight of that in your excitement. So I have to always kind of remind myself, I've been talking up Sam Howell this entire offseason, but you guys have brains of your own. And there have been some of you like, I don't buy it. He's going to suck. We're going to be looking for a quarterback next year. And so I hope those people are wrong. But I'm not knocking anybody for not believing in Sam Howell, because it's a small sample size here in the NFL. He'd win in the 5th round. That to me is lazy and low-hanging fruit. But if you want to take a bite out of that, knock yourself out. You won't be the only one. Pass it around. At the end of the day, it's fun to see this fan base rally around Sam, because I think he has a chance to do damage in this league and be special. And hearing those numbers from you, I thought they would be a little bit lower. I'm not going to lie to you. There were quite a few 8s and 9s. There were probably 3 or 4 10s in there. There was a 9.5 in there somewhere. So these were some pretty good numbers for Sam. My confidence level, look, you can't ask me. I'm biased. I really think the world of Sam Howell. As a matter of fact, I wanted to play a video. I'm not the only one that seems to think that Sam Howell is being slept on. And all the shit that I've told you, I've given you reasons as to why. When I was on the Super Friends stream with Bad Dog and LB and Law, and they wanted to know why, and I explained to them why, and I've explained to you guys why all offseason, why I think this guy can be a true difference maker in this league. And, look, everyone's going to be skeptical, and they should. They have every right to be. But I've made these points already, but it's always refreshing when people who do this for a living are making the same points that I've been making all off season long. And so this is Daniel Jeremiah and he's bullish on not only Washington this year, but Sam Howell, and he's bullish on Washington, and he thinks Washington has a chance to be a playoff team because of the presence of Sam Howell. This is Daniel Jeremiah and Andrew Siciliano from February, before the start of free agency. I want you to take a listen to this dialogue back and forth between Andrew Siciliano and Daniel Jeremiah in regards to Sam Howell. Take a listen.
Howell eventually is the guy.
I think he's going to get every opportunity to win that job. And I think it's wrong to look at him as somebody who wasn't a high draft pick. To me, somebody that inexplicably fell in the draft and was a gift to Washington where they were able to get him. I think he is a starting caliber quarterback. You go back to what people thought about him going into his final year there at North Carolina, a lot of expectation he'd be a first-round pick. He was in the back end of my top 50. I thought he'd go early in the second round at worst. So to get him where they got him was a real bargain. We saw when he got on the field in very limited opportunity. He's got talent, Andrew. He's got a big arm. He can move around. He can make some plays with his legs. I think he's going to get every opportunity to win that starting job.
When we had Eric Bieniemy on the show, the day in which he had his introductory press conference in Washington, he made that same point about he wasn't a quarterback who's a mid-round pick. He's a guy that fell inexplicably.
Everything around him crumbled. He lost his receivers, his running backs, everything.
Javonte Williams and Michael Carter and De'Ami Brown, who he's now reunited with in Washington, long list of guys there. But Bieniemy made the point that when he was with Kansas City, they had him scouted a lot higher. I tried to pin down Martin Mayhew at the Combine how high they had him on their board. He wouldn't go there. I mean, there's a chance he is a steal. I think what Sherry said is interesting. Do you bring in a veteran like a Teddy Bridgewater potentially to compete with him? And how much opportunity do you truly give Howell to win it? Does he have to win it in a knockout? Do you want to go with the youth?
I think if it's close, you go with the youth. I'm all for bringing in a veteran. I wouldn't even look at it so much as a fallback plan or competition. I'd almost look at it as somebody to come in and support him, someone to be an extra set of eyes, someone to help him in his preparation during the week of game prep. To me, that is the kind of veteran you'd bring in. I'm confident. I'm confident in him, and I also think with some of the pieces they have in place around him on the defensive side of the ball, as well as some guys around him to help him run the football, I don't think it's going to be a quarterback-centric team. I don't think it's going to all be put on the quarterback there for Washington.
No, they have a lot of weapons there, and it's certainly one of the reasons Eric Bieniemy, I think, was attracted to that job. Obviously, working with Ron Rivera, calling plays on his own there, but they have a lot of toys to play with as an OC, and as Sam Howell potentially there's the quarterback.
So, as you can hear, Daniel Jeremiah thinks we got to steal, as do I, which is what I've been talking about all offseason. I even said it last year when we drafted him. Like, I thought this dude would be gone in the second round. I had a second-round grade on Sam Howell. You know, it seemed like that Virginia Tech game, the first game of his junior season, that 2021 season, seemed like, you know, he goes to Blacksburg, he struggles. Obviously, as Daniel Jeremiah laid out, and I've been talking about all offseason, all his receivers were gone. Both of his running backs were gone. Half of his offensive line was gone. It was total mass exodus. And they go on the road to Virginia Tech, a tougher environment, quality defense, and he struggles. And he's got to reinvent himself at UNC. He's got to figure out, what does this team need from me? The first 2 years of his collegiate career, he was not a runner. He probably had 300 or 400 yards total combined in the first 2 years. And he realized in that final year, I've got to use my legs more. This is what they need from me. Those running backs are gone and they're not coming back. My 2 top receivers, gone. They're not coming back. Half of my offensive line, gone, not coming back. I'm going to have to turn into a playmaker. And that's what he did in that junior season. And I think it was that transformation for me that showed this kid can adapt, he can adjust, and he's got all the tools. And I think Daniel Jeremiah is telling you, look, you guys probably got to steal. He's got a chance to prove all of these teams wrong and show the league that they made a mistake in letting him fall all the way to the 5th round. That's where I am with mine. And so you know what it is for me. I'm 8.5, 9 on Sam. Y'all know what it is. I think Sam's going to come in and crush it this year. And, yep, there'll be mistakes. And also, I think Daniel Jeremiah is once again spot on for those of you who those of you who believe that there's actually a true competition. There's no competition in camp. They brought in Jacoby Brissett, and they're not going to say this, and they shouldn't say this. I saw an article about a week ago from Andy Dalton saying, I still believe I can start in this league, and I'm competing to start in Carolina. No, you're not. You're going into Carolina to be a veteran mentor for their number 1 overall pick. Okay? That's what you're going to be brought in to do. Same thing for Jacoby Brissett here. He's going to be brought in to compete, but we know what it is. He's being brought in to help mentor Sam Howell. And so this is Sam's job. It's not Sam's job to lose. You heard them say, if it's close, you go with the young player. It's not going to be close, but even if it is, who gives a shit? Your future isn't with Jacoby Brissett, right? So at the end of the day, I'm pushing all my Sam Howell chips into the center of the table, and I'm doubling down. Try and stop me. I may go broke. I may have to, throw my wedding ring in there, car keys, whatever. But I'm all in. So confidence level is probably a 9 with Sam. It's not a 10 for me because I can't give you a 10. It's almost like an evaluation. If I give you a 10, then there's no room for improvement. If I were going around the league, there aren't maybe but 5 or 6 quarterbacks that would get a 10 from me, period. And these are guys that have proven it in the league already, who have done it. Our guy hasn't really done it in the NFL yet. So to give him a 10 would be disrespectful to the guys around the league who have done it and earned a 10. So not a 10, but it's a 9. I'm really confident he's going to come in and play really well. And I think we're going to feel like we've got a guy at the end of the 2023 season. We don't have to keep looking. Next, confidence index. This is a big one. I'm expecting some relatively low numbers here. Next confidence index. 1 to 10, scale of 1 to 10. Offensive line. Going into camp, what is your confidence level with the offensive line? Hit me with it. Be nice, okay? This isn't the worst offensive line in the league, okay? Relax. Let's see what you guys have got to say on this one. Mega 412 says a 2. Miss Perry says 0. Ouch. Really, Miss Perry? A 0? Wow. Kevin Hooker, a 6.5. Mega says a 1.5. So you changed it from a 2 to a 1.5. Metaphor says a 6. Frost 40 below says a 3. District of Command says 5. Miss Perry doubles down and says none. No confidence. I said 0. I need to make sure you understand none. Okay. Frankie says a 4. Celia Jones, 6. Fat Boy V, a 5. Ephraim, a 5. Jay says a 2. None at all for Miss Perry. Leon Williams, a 4. Oz Duke, a 5. AJ says a 3.5. Mr. Ron B, a 4.5. Mega went from a 2 to a 1.5 to a -3. It's uncapped, 5. Aunt J, 7. Tony Barefoot, 4. The O-line, it must have been so bad that Aunt JJ went from Aunt JJ to Aunt J. Terry Carter, a 9. Okay, Terry's confident in the offensive line, unless he's catching up and he's talking about Sam. B. Smitty said, woo, like, oh, that 9 is too rich for my blood. I got a 5 or a 6. Josh Denton says a 5. Stefan, a 2. Kevin the PRF, a 4. Damon says a 4. Johnny Boy 26, a 5. Ben says a 5. Rick the Ruler, 4.5. Darnell Kelly says negative infinity. It reminds me of White Man Can't Jump. Infinity plus infinity, Billy. Negative infinity. Horace Mebane, 4. Justin, a 6. Shay. So it wasn't an easy 6, Justin? Just a 6? Shay says a 4. David, a 4. Duncan, a 10. A 10. He's trolling. Let's see. Immersive V, about a 4.5. Joe Rockhead says a 7. TJ Julius, a 3.5. Soprano, a 6. King of the North, a 5. Red Wings, a 6. Justin says a hard, not an easy, a hard 7 because of EB. Abdul says 4 and a possible. Now we on some spades. Justin with the dice. Abdul with the spades. Peter V, a 3. Humble King, a 4. All right. DJ says a 5. And Washington football fan says 6.5. Justo 428, a 5. B Wright, an 8. D'Angelo Dean, a 5. Victor Fowler, a 7. Marky Mark, a 7. Cool Colors, a 5. Big Daddy Butts, 5 to the 3rd power. And Miss Perry says, wish I had y'all's confidence. So that was about what I thought, what I expected. A lot of 5s and below. Not a lot of people super confident in this offensive line. I think anything below a 4 is disrespectful. The line is not trash. Okay. You have the same left tackle, and for some of you, that's a problem. That's part of the reason the score is so low. We got the same left tackle coming back. He wasn't terrible. He had his moments last year where he didn't have good plays in particular, and those were big misses. Those were big plays that happened to hurt us in a major way, specifically the Giants game, the Lions game. Like his misses, his bad plays, there were only maybe 6 or 7 poor snaps. But those 6 or 7 poor snaps cost us dearly in 2022. So I get it, but you can do a hell of a lot worse. I've said this many times. You can do a hell of a lot worse than Charles Leno Jr. at left tackle. I don't think he's as bad as a lot of you make him out to be. Left guard, big problem. Big problem. Okay. We don't know what the hell we're getting out of that position. I feel good about center. And I think the depth that they've built around that position puts us in a place where we haven't been in a while because of the injuries. Each of the last 2 seasons, our centers, both of them, have been coming off of major injuries. So even with those guys healthy, the threat of them getting hurt again was always there and looming. That's not the case this year. You got Nick Gates, and I know some of you say, well, shit, he had a major injury. We thought his football career was over, but he's come back and he's played since then. So between him and you bring back Tyler Larson, who's finally healthy, and you draft Ricky Stromberg, I think we have enough at that position. I feel really good about center. I really, truly do. Right guard, I feel good about Sam Cosmi at right guard. There may be some growing pains in there. That's not his natural position, but I think he was probably better suited for guard anyway. So if he's healthy, and this has been his problem, I know, I've acknowledged this, and if he's healthy, I feel good about him. And then, you go out, you sign Andrew Wiley, solid. He's not a world beater by any stretch of the imagination, but I think he can hold his own on the right side. So I think this is a really solid offensive line. I want to see how they work as a unit. That's going to be the most important part, is getting those guys there. I pray that they're able to stay healthy throughout training camp into the preseason and are able to get work as a unit. That was one of the big problems last year. Very underrated. We did not talk about this a ton. I know I brought it up on several occasions, but I didn't harp on it. I will harp on it this year if it is a problem. It was a problem last year that I don't think we talked about enough. We had a lot of guys in and out of the offensive line last year for a group that hadn't played together. You had Trey Turner miss pretty much all of the preseason, all the training camp for the most part. You were dealing with some injuries on the line, and so we were shuffling pieces. They were still playing with the line in week 1, subbing guys in and out, tackle, guard, all kinds of bullshit. So I just want the 5 guys that they deem to be the best. And obviously there's a battle at left guard, so that may be hard to do if you're trying to give the guys equal reps. And you've already come out and said that we're giving Sadiq the first crack at left guard. So if that's the case, then let Sadiq have the first crack at left guard. Let's not play this game of musical chairs at left guard. If you truly want to see if Sadiq can hold down that position, give him the keys and let's see if he can drive the car or not. If he can't drive the whip, say, give me my keys back before you wreck my shit, and you hand them over to Chris Paul and see what he can do, right? And if neither one of those guys are adequate enough, now we got to start playing around. Maybe Ricky Stromberg goes to guard. Maybe Nick Gates goes to guard and Stromberg goes to center. Then we got to start playing around with some shit. But before we get there, let's see what these guys can do. So I'm not shocked that you guys aren't super confident. Miss Perry being a 0 is a bit shocking. I did not think that we would get a 0 or a negative infinity, right? But I think this line is, for me right now, I think the line is a 5.5, 6. I actually think it's going to be a solid unit. I like the moves that have been made. And remember, I was tripping about lack of interior depth, specifically at guard. Those have been quelled by, they've been quelled because somebody said to me that same night when I brought it up, they said, well, a lot of the guys, they love their damn positional flex. And a lot of the guys that they brought in here are guys that they truly believe can play multiple positions. If you watch the Commanders log, they love the fact that Braden Daniels can play all 5 positions if need be on the offensive line. They love Ricky Stromberg's ability to play both guard and center. Nick Gates can play both guard and center. So if we have issues at guard, there's enough depth on the roster. Even if worst case scenario push came to shove, you needed to kick Andrew Wiley inside, you could, and start Cornelius Lucas at right tackle. That is an extreme case because To me, we've got one of the best swing tackles in football right now. You would hate to pull him out of that position and force him into the starting role, because then if somebody were to get hurt at tackle, now you're really playing around with the depth of the offensive line. So you really don't want to do that. But that's worst case scenario. Even if you had to do that, you could. That's the kind of positional flex. And I know a lot of y'all, you cringe every time you hear that phrase. But that's the kind of depth that we have in guys being able to play multiple positions. So I think it's a 6 for the offensive line right now. All right, next item on the docket, confidence index. What is your confidence level with the entire defense? Scale of 1 to 10. What is your confidence level in this defense? The secondary has been bolstered. Linebacker position may leave a bit to be desired. Defensive line, I think right now is at its peak with all the bodies coming back from injury. Chase Young, Fadarian Mathis, John Ridgway was outstanding last year. He should be ready for the start of camp. You got Sweat going into a contract year. You got Deron Payne coming off his best season of his career, getting paid. Jonathan Allen has been a consistent pro and continuing to grow in that role. It is the strength of our team defensively, but overall as a unit. This includes Jack Del Rio and his ability to call plays, not just the talent on the field, but also Jack Del Rio's ability to put guys in a position to make plays. What is your confidence level in this defense? All right. Let's see where we stand now. Mega says a 7. Metaphor, a 9. Ooh, these are some high numbers. Kevin Hooker, 8.5. Johnny Boy, an 8. King of the North, an 8. Red Wings, 0-1, an 8. District of Command, a 7. Nate, a 9. It's Uncapped, a 9. David, Win, an 8. Miss Perry, an 8. Marky Mark, a 9. Peter V, a 7.5. Shay Robinson, a 7. Ephraim, a 7. Ben, an 8. Big Daddy Butts, an 8.42222. So we're going to round that to an 8.42. Aunt J, a 9. Mr. Ron B, an 8. Rick the Ruler, an 8. Terry Carter, 8.5. Bam Bam, 9.6. Soprano, 8. Humble King, a 9. J Martell, 1,000 to infinity and beyond. Okay. Frankie Yo, an 8. Leon Williams, a 9. B Schmitty, 8.5. Watt Holmes says a 20. Whew. Carl Wilkerson, a 10. What? Damon says an 8. Horace, a 9. Tony Barefoot, 8.5. Washington football fan, 8.45. B. Schmitty says, all right, to hell with it. Let's round it up to a 9. Justin Evans, an easy 10. Victor Fowler says 100. Defense should be elite. Frankie Yo. Okay, we already got yours. Loser says a 10. AJ says a 9. Darnell says 6.5. TJ, 10. Joe Rockhead, 8.5. Saleya, 8.5. Jay, a 10. DeAndre, an 8. Cool Colors, a 9. Richard, an 8. Abdul, a 7 and a possible. And D'Angelo says a 9. Okay, so Stefan says an 8. So on the defense, you guys are bullish. I think that is the most consistent across the board that we've seen in terms of the confidence index to this point. And I don't blame you. I'm not as bullish as you are on this defense. I love what they've done to the secondary. I love our defensive line. I've minimized the impact that the linebacker position is going to have, so I'm not even tripping on that. So you're probably asking yourself, if you love what they've done in the secondary, and the secondary is really solid already as is, and you love the improvements that they've made, they spent their first 2 draft picks on guys in that secondary, and you love the defensive front, and they added KJ Henry to that mix. They're getting Chase Young back healthy this year. They're getting Fadarian Mathis healthy back this year. John Ridgeway was outstanding last year. We already know what the Bama Wall is all about. Sweat is, I think, bound for a breakout year similar to the one we saw from Deron Payne last year. How can you not love the defense? Great question. Great question. So really what it boils down to for me is my confidence level in our ability to adjust to what's being done to us. It's great when you can just go out, line up, and kick the team's ass in front of you like we did against Houston or even Minnesota, right? I thought we had a great game plan against them, really stifled them for 3.5 quarters till we unraveled in the 4th, you know. But what happens when you're getting gouged, right? Like we were against Atlanta in the 4th quarter, in particular, in the second half, really, or Indy at times on the ground. Again, if not for the turnovers against Indy, we don't beat them. They self-destructed. They showed why they were a bad football team, because they were killing us and moving the football down the field with Sam Ehlinger. I can't stop repeating that. With Sam Ehlinger at quarterback. Jacksonville had their way with us in week 1. San Francisco 49ers had their way with us in that game, in the second half primarily. The Browns had their way with us in the second half of that game. The Giants, on a critical drive where we get the field goal to cut it to 12-17, we need a stop in the ball back, and we let them drive the ball pretty much down the field with the run game. I want to know if Jack is willing to do what is necessary when it needs to be done. Is Jack, in doing this series, Reign of Terror, it forced me to go back in my brain and think about those defenses in 04, in 05, in 07. Even the 2009 defense wasn't terrible. They just quit. It got me to thinking about some of these defenses, especially the Gibbs era defenses under Greg Williams, and how those teams were aggressive coming after the quarterback. Didn't always work, but they were aggressive, and they picked their spots. They weren't always aggressive. But when Greg decided to dial it up, he was coming after your ass, and you're going to have to make a quick decision. And the NFL's changed drastically since 2004, right? 2005. Rules have changed. You can't be as aggressive at the line of scrimmage. You can't hit players the way that you used to. So it's a much, much different game, and it's much more of a passing league now than ever before. It's a totally different game. I understand that. But I watch other teams that are aggressive, and you have to pick your spots. I would like to see JDR pick his spots a little bit better this year. And you go out and get Quan Martin, you go out and get Emmanuel Forbes so that you can be a little bit more aggressive on the outsides, so that you can have corners that you feel like can cover guys and run. Part of the reason that you don't want to be over aggressive is because you don't feel like your corners can run with other receivers. We saw that last year. A prime example is the Minnesota game. Jack decided to blitz Kirk Cousins on a crucial, critical 3rd and 7, and Juice gets cooked. There's no other way to say it. Justin Jefferson ran right by his ass. You can't be aggressive if you don't trust your corners to play man-to-man and be able to run with the guy step for step 30, 40 yards down the field. You can't do it. Well, you go out and get Emmanuel Forbes. You still got Kendall Fuller. You still got Juice. You add in a guy like Quan Martin, and all of a sudden, you've increased the team speed on the back end exponentially. You should be able to be slightly more aggressive in those types of situations. I want to know if we can play better zone coverage. A lot of what we did last year, and I don't want to rain on the parade. I want to shit on what we did last year. We were a quality NFL defense last year. But I also acknowledge that our zone coverage still isn't tight like some of the other teams around the league, which is why we don't have a bunch of interceptions. Tight zone defense is quarterback tries to squeeze it in this little hole here, pause, and a guy is over here in zone, but he sees what the quarterback's looking at, and he comes over and he bats the ball in the air, and it gets picked off. That's tight zone coverage. We don't play a lot of that. So I want to see if this defense can take the next step. I've been talking about it, creating turnovers. Getting off the field on third down is great, but that doesn't carry over from year to year all the time. Just like creating turnovers doesn't carry over from year to year all the time. We were one of the worst teams in football creating turnovers last year. Let's see if we can't flip that on its head and become one of the better teams in the league at creating turnovers. We were great at getting off the field on third downs. I'd love to replicate that, but there's no guarantee that that's going to take place. We're not going to have guys dropping passes on third downs like we did last year. We're not going to have quarterbacks missing wide open receivers like we did last year. We caught some breaks last year. Don't let you guys watch the games now. Don't let the statistics fool you. You know what you saw last year. We were far from elite. Don't psych yourself up. I like the improvements that were made, the additions that were brought in here. I want to see how it all plays itself out. And if the upgrade in talent gives Jack a little bit more leeway and a little bit more confidence to maybe be a little bit more aggressive. I'm not asking Jack to turn into Jim Haslett. I'm not asking for him to turn into Wink Martindale and be blitzing on every other snap. That's not what I'm asking him to do. I'm asking for him to just be a little bit more aggressive. I'm asking for our players to be a little bit smarter, and don't just do your job. Do your job first, but go above and beyond the call of duty. Okay? So you're on the backside of a play. There's nobody over there. How about you cheat over a little bit and see if you can't help your teammate on this deep over route? Don't just stay, I'm guarding my grass. No, go be a part of the play. Go be a football player. With that said, I think my confidence in the defense right now is about a good, rock-solid 7. I like this group. I think it has a chance to be really good, but I need to see it first because, as Aaron Rodgers said last year after we played the Packers, when he was asked, hey, you had a rough game against Washington. What did they do? And he said, nothing. Basic coverage. We just missed some. We just missed some things. I missed some throws. Excuse me. We weren't on the same page at some times, and we just missed some opportunities. He wasn't lying. I went back, watched the film. I told you guys this much. After I watched it, I said Aaron Rodgers wasn't lying. We didn't do anything special. He missed open receivers. Guys dropped passes. They were just uncharacteristically bad. And the numbers will say, man, the Packers were they didn't convert a third down in that game, remember? They were like 0 of 6 or 7 in that game on third downs. We walked out puffing up our chests, and we were like, yeah, Rodgers ain't had a day like that since his rookie season, or his first year starting, rather. Yeah, look at us. Come on, man. Come on, buddy. Come on, buddy. Y'all know better than that. I got a 7. Confidence index, our last item of the night for the confidence index. What is your level of confidence with the special teams? And this is all encapsulating here. All right. I'm talking kickoff return, punt return, punt coverage unit, kickoff coverage unit, field goal kicking, all of it under one umbrella. All right. All encompassing. I'm talking about everything under the special teams umbrella. What is your confidence level in our special teams? Football is a 3-phase game: offense, defense, special teams. Sometimes special teams gets lost in its importance, but you go into every game looking to win 2 out of the 3 phases. If you can do that, a lot of times, unless you lose one of those phases really bad, like you're dominated in one of those phases and it overshadows the other 2, generally you win 2 out of the 3 phases, you're going to win a lot of football games. You know, unless you win defense and special teams, but you turn it over 4 times, you're probably going to lose the game. Unless your defense is playing lights out and they're creating turnovers of their own to offset the offense struggling. But at the end of the day, what's your confidence level in special teams? And that means punt returns, kickoffs. How do you feel about Joey Sly? You know, do you trust him in a big spot? We trust Tress. In Tress, we trust, right? We don't worry about Tressway. I love our gunners. I love the guys we got down there covering kicks. We got fiends. Let's see what you guys got to say here. King of the North says a 7. Jay Martell a 5. Ban a 5. It's Uncapped 7. Peter V 7. Miss Perry a 5. Celia Jones, Celia rather 7. Tony Barefoot 9. Cool Colors 6. District of Command a 6. Leon Williams a 6. Shay Robinson a 5. David Wynn a 6.5. Soprano a 6. Kevin the PRF a 7. Ben Haniger a 6. Victor Fowler a 6. Joe Rockhead 7.5. Damon Bullock a 5. Stefan a 7. Mr. Ron B a 5. Humble King a 6. AJ an 8. Duncan Wright a 5. Okay. Darnell Kelly a 4. B. Smitty says his number comes down from an 8 to a 4 because of Joey Sly. Johnny Boy says 6. Abdul says a 4. DeAndre Taylor says a 6. Richard says a 6. Horace M says a 4. Red Wings says a 9. TJ Julius says a 5.5. Ephraim a 6. Kevin Hooker a 7. And Jeffrey Thomas says an 8. Okay, so I like those responses, and I think it is a microcosm of special teams unit as a whole. I think your answers are all over the place, ranging from as high as a 9 to as low as a 4. I don't think we saw anything lower than a 4. So that sounds about right for the special teams unit. I think some of you are overrating the returns game. It's such a minimal part now. I wish it was bigger, but the NFL as a whole, nobody's returning kicks for touchdowns really anymore. Maybe a kickoff or 2. You're rarely seeing punts return for touchdowns. I think there may have been 4 or 5 league-wide last year. I remember like maybe 2 or 3 of them. The Cowboys got a huge boost from Kevontae Turpin, who they got out of the, I want to say he was from the USFL, and he offered them a huge boost. He also fumbled a bunch as well. He fumbled against us, as a matter of fact. So there's a give and take there. I just don't want my special teams turning it over. Yeah, I would have loved it if if we would have gotten more out of the punt return game with Dax Milne. But Antonio Gibson was pretty solid on kickoff returns. And Dax Milne didn't fumble anything. He didn't do anything major, but he didn't hurt us either. And that's the most important part. Just get the ball back to the offense, man. Shit. So in years past, I had a big problem because even though we felt like we had guys that could be a little bit dangerous back there, they also, muffed the ball. Outside of 2021 with DeAndre Carter, and he did fumble, but we recovered it. But he did fumble. And he did return one for a touchdown, too, on the kickoff. Outside of 2021, we really haven't had any real production out of our punt return or kickoff return, for that matter, or our returns game in general. So it's hard to miss what you've never had. That's why I think it sucked in 2022. We got spoiled in 2021 with DeAndre Carter. And so we were looking for something out of the returns game because we had gotten so much from it the year before. I just don't want the ball turned over at the end of the day. I think the biggest thing that we need to focus in on, first of all, I love our coverage units. Kickoff, we rarely give up any big kickoff returns. Most of ours are touchbacks, and when they do return it, we do a pretty good job of corralling guys before they even get to the 25-yard line. So love our coverage units. I think we get down there, between All-Pro Revo and all of those guys that are on the return coverage units, especially punts with Tressway. We down that ball inside the 5 quite often. They do a great job of getting down there. I think they can be a little bit more aware of if they stepped out of bounds and being the first one to touch it. We got penalized for that multiple times last year. I like to see them clean that shit up. But outside of that, I thought our guys were rock solid. We recovered about 2 or 3 fumbles. The Bears fumble that they recovered was a game changer, right? Like, we don't win that game without it. So I love our coverage units. That sends the number really high. And then you bring it down from there, right? So I think our coverage units are 10. I love them. I don't have any doubts about them going down, covering kicks. We're not giving up shit in my mind, right? So it starts at a 10 with them, and then you start picking away at that. Joey Sly is a field goal kicker and his reliability, punt returns, kickoff returns. We don't know who's going to be doing either of those jobs for us in 2023. So I think that's something to consider. Joey Sly is an enigma for me because on one hand, when he got here in 2021, he didn't miss a kick for us. Not a single one. He was perfect. He got here probably with a third of the season left, maybe. I feel like a third of the season left. Maybe there was a little bit more. Maybe half of the season was left. But he came in and he was outstanding. And then last year, he missed kicks. You just can't afford to have your kicker miss. The ones inside of 40 yards, you can't miss those. He missed like 2 of those. He missed some extra points. But he made some bombs, including that Eagles game. We can't forget that, right? He made some bombs, and there were some games where he was outstanding. He was 3 for 3, or he was, 4 for 4, and we needed every single point. He was, again, that Eagles kick before the half was a humongous momentum boost heading into halftime. I thought that set the tone for the second half. So I'm really feeling Joey Sly. I just need him to be a little bit more consistent. So when it's all said and done, when you put all those factors together, we don't know what we're getting out of the returns game. We don't even know who is going to be fielding punts or kickoffs, because I don't think that they're going to have Antonio Gibson back there. I think they want someone to take over the punt and kickoff return duties so that he doesn't have to do that anymore. Worst case scenario, Gibson can still do that, being that B-Rob is going to be your primary ball, handler, and you still have Chris Rodriguez, if you need to put out there in a pinch. So worst case scenario, you can still put Gibby back there on kickoffs, but you still don't have anybody returning punts right now. We're hoping that the Euclid kid pans out. But, we'll see if Kaz Allen is all that we've hyped him up to be or not. But when it's all said and done, I think my confidence level is an 8 with the special teams. I really feel good about the unit. If it's probably an 8 because there's a little bit of doubt with just a smidge. I'm not as down on Joey Sly as the rest of you. But I've got a soft spot for the field goal kickers, especially ones that I know that are talented, because I've been a fan of this team long enough to have seen us give up on kickers too soon, only for them to go on to have illustrious careers with other teams, and we just gave up on them too quick. David Akers, right, is the first guy that I can remember us giving up on, and then he goes and has a fantastic career with the Philadelphia Eagles and San Francisco 49ers. All right, we gave up on Graham Gano too soon. Sean Sweezum deserved to be given up on, but he ended up having a really good career with the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right, we gave up on Graham Gano, and I was a big Graham Gano fan, but it just doesn't work sometimes. It just doesn't work. We gave up on Graham Gano, and he goes to Carolina, and it's spectacular. He goes to the Giants. He's awesome, and he's still in the league kicking kicks and doing a hell of a job. But at some point, you got to move on when a guy's just not getting it done. But Dustin Hopkins had a run here. He was solid. We had to move on from D-Hop. I'm giving Graham Gano the benefit, or Graham Gano. I'm giving Joey Sly the benefit of the doubt. And I want to see him revert back to his 2021, kicking. I think he can. So those are the confident. And so, you know what? That was the last one. I like to have 7 when we start listing things. That was 6. So to round it out, to make it a nice, beautiful set of 7. Now give me your overall confidence level in this team. Overall, the entire package. The 2023 Washington Commanders as they head into camp. What is your confidence level with this entire? We've talked about pretty much all the different parts and components that make up the team. The coaching staff, the offense, the defense. We've talked about all of the different parts. We didn't get as specific on the offensive side, like receiver and running back and all that stuff. We didn't need to do that. I know what your confidence level is in the receivers, in the backs, and things of that nature. Could have asked you about tight end, but now what is it with this entire team? How do you feel about this team heading into camp? This should be interesting. All right, so we start with Red Wings 01, who writes a 7.5. King of the North, 7. Damon Bullock, I like where this is going, 7. Kevin Hooker, 7.5. Marky Mark, 7. Flame Legion, 7. Miss Perry, 7. DeAndre Taylor, 7.75. Joe Rockhead says 8.5. Ban says 7.9. Jay Martell says 8.5 to 9. Leon Williams, a 9. Shay Robinson, a 7. Mr. Ron B, 7.5. Justin Evans, easy 7, hard 9. All right. Mental One, 7. Victor Fowler, 7. Reedy Davis, 6. Ben Haniger, 8. AJ, 8. District of Command, 8.5. Humble King, 7. Rock Solid, 8 from B. Schmitty. Big Daddy Butts, 10 to 7 or 7.5. Or 10 and 7 is the record. 7.5 is his confidence level. Okay, got you. Richard, 7. Abdul, right, 7. Metaphor, 7. Be Right, 8. Fizzle, okay, 8.5. Mike Astorino, solid 8. Duncan Wright. Good. David Wynn, 7. Horace M, 8.5. Darnell Kelly, 5. Kevin the PRF, 8. Loki, not Loki, 7. Johnny Boy, 9. TJ Julius, 8.5. Stefan, a 7. So I like those answers. That you guys kind of align right where I am. Celia says a 8. My confidence level is right in that 7 wheelhouse. I think that's where it should be. And I can't tell anybody how to feel, whether you're above that 7 threshold or you're below it. I don't think anyone's confidence level should be below a 5. I think the roster is good enough. I think the coaching staff definitely leaves a bit to be desired because there's so many things that we don't know. There's so many unknowns, so many risk factors that you have to kind of enter in. Bieniemy, the quarterbacks coach, you got a new receivers coach, you got a new secondary coach, you got a new offensive line coach, even though he was already here. Still, it's different. It's a different voice that's leading the room. So there's so many changes. You got to take all of that stuff into consideration and how that affects, the team overall. But for the most part, the same voices are there. And for the most part, you got Ron Rivera's voice, you got Jack Del Rio's voice. Those are the guys that continue to kind of keep that same energy going moving forward, and you're hoping that some of the new guys that they've brought in kind of push us to that next level. Kind of been stagnant here over the last 3 years. You're hoping that this next group comes in and pushes this team as a whole up to that next level, to a playoff team. We've been hovering around mediocrity. Now you're hoping to take that next step and be into the postseason. And so I think just based off of the continuity, you got your coaching staff going into year 4. It's not often, it's crazy that I say that, but in this league, with such a high turnover rate, it's not often that you get to year 4 of a program where you haven't had a winning season yet. So it's rare. Coaches generally don't get 4 years when they haven't had a winning season in the first 3. So for this opportunity to be here for Ron Rivera, we're kind of going into uncharted territory in an industry, in a league where you don't get this kind of continuity without some sort of success. And I don't claim that first year of winning the division at 7-9 being success. So you look around the league and there's 5, 6, 7 new head coaches every year. The Texans are paying their, 4th head coach in 4 years? They fired their head coach after 1 year each of the last 2 years. So, I mean, that's the kind of league that we're in right now. You generally don't get an opportunity after 3 years if you haven't won anything. So I like the fact that this group is going into year 4 and we got a chance to kind of put it all together. So I think a 7 is fair. I think that's the number for me. And I see that's the number for a lot of you. And that's a good place to be going into camp at a 7, because if Bieniemy is what we think he can be, if Sam Howell turns out to be franchise quarterback material, if the tight end position gives us anything, if the offensive line is able to stabilize, and be a quality unit, the defense is able to. This is year 4 of Jack's system. Like, if you've been here multiple years, you don't have to think anymore. Leave that for the young boys. If you're Jamin Davis, this is year 3. You don't have to think anymore. You've been in this system for 3 years. Benjamin St. Juice, yeah, they may be moving you from boundary to nickel. You don't have to think anymore. The veterans definitely don't have to think. There was a lot of thinking going on last year with Defoe. He doesn't have to think anymore. This is year 3 for him in the same system. That's the beauty of continuity. Not having constant change and turnover allows you to just go out and play. Use your athleticism and your God-given ability. You don't have to be bogged down by the mental side of the game. You do your homework, you film study, you know what the other team is trying to do. When they align in this look, this is what they're trying to get to. When you put in the work, film study-wise, you know your defense, you know the call, you know what your responsibility is. Now you can just go out and play. Now more plays can be made. So I love that aspect. I think that this is an exciting offseason. I told you this is a really exciting offseason. Not just because we're getting new ownership. That trumps everything. I don't have to explain that. But not just because we're getting new ownership. We're excited about Eric Bieniemy. I'm excited about Sam Howell. I think most of you are as well. Not everyone is. But I'm excited about Sam Howell. I'm excited about the weapons that he's being provided. I'm excited about this defense and the step that I think they are prepared to take this year. I'm excited about the young players that they've brought in. There's a lot to be excited about. Now it's got to translate into victories. That's the most important thing. We can be as excited as we want to. But come week 1, we got food being served up in front of us. And if we can't eat against the Arizona Cardinals, we ain't shit. We ain't shit, and we ain't never going to be shit. So my biggest thing is I think the confidence level for this team is right where it needs to be, around 7. A lot of you were right in that neighborhood. It's their job to instill even more confidence in us. Push it to 8 or 9. We'll see if they can do that. Let's see. All right, so that was a fun exercise. You guys killed it. Appreciate all of that participation from you guys. Now let's get to the comment section.
Sam Howell eventually is the guy.
I think he's going to give it every receivers, his running backs, everything.
Sorry about that. And see what you guys have to say. So, let me check in here real quick and make sure that I didn't miss. I don't see anything. Doesn't mean they weren't there, but I don't see any comments. But it's been so many comments because of our exercise. They got deleted. Some of the comments got deleted. All right. So first, I want to send a big shout out to Victor Fowler. Stand up. You know what it is. You in the building. Mob Squad. Y'all know what it is. Stand up. We in the building. It's getting close to being that time, Mob. Y'all know what it is. Victor Fowler, welcome. You are the newest member of the Mob Squad. So glad to have you on board, Mob. Y'all know what to do. Show Victor some love. Welcome him with open arms to the best squad in the business, the MOBB. Victor Fowler, welcome aboard. You won't be sorry. Looking forward to chopping it up with you, and welcome to the squad. Glad to have you. Darnell Kelly, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy Darnell writes, what up? I finally closed on this house and got my man cave. Congratulations, man. That is a great feeling. I'm so jealous talking to everybody that's finally getting into their homes. I'm ready to get into my house, man. And I know that whatever house I move into next won't even be my forever home, but I'm ready to get into something that I can call my own, start putting equity in something. So that is a great feeling, man. Congrats, man. I really love to hear it. I hope I don't tear it up. Don't. Look, bro, you work way too hard to build that man cave, to put things in it. Don't allow the team to frustrate you to the point where you start tearing shit up, because they're not going to help you pay for it, okay? So remain calm at all times, and take care of the man cave, man. Since 88, my first year of fandom, more bad than good times, as you remind me every day with the reign of terror. Look, man, 88 was a fine time to be alive as a fan. And you had some really good times. You saw Chip. You saw one of the greatest NFL teams ever in league history. That 91 Redskins team is one of the greatest teams ever assembled. They were dominant. Okay. So you just missed the Doug Williams chip, but you arrived in time to get that 91 action. So you saw some good, but as you mentioned, you saw a lot more bad than good. But I know a lot of people that would trade places with you to get a piece of that 91 action. So anyway, don't tear your man cave up, man. That's the best advice I can give you. Congratulations once again. Duncan Wright, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, my guy Duncan Wright. Let me see what kind of trash you're talking about tonight. Duncan says, who's your QB, Louie? And whoever it is, do you really think he will be better than Danny Dak or the great Jalen? Maybe you need a new coach. Couch, put it in the basement. Yeah, I already told you already that when the season's done, our guy, Sam Howell, will be better than one of the quarterbacks in the NFC East. I didn't say which one. That's not for me to decide. I'm just telling you, he won't be at the bottom of the pecking order when this season is done. That's how confident I am in Sam Howell. He would have already leapfrogged one of the three quarterbacks in the division. And I'll let your imagination run wild as to who he will leapfrog over. But once the season kicks off, it's new Howell order, man. The takeover begins. You either in or you out. So you'll find out relatively early. Of all the teams in the division, we got y'all early. So you'll get some of this work nice and early. Don't you worry. Victor Fowler, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. And thank you for becoming the newest member of the MOBB, who writes, what's good, LT? Love the content. Hashtag HTTC, man. Hey, all is good, man. And I appreciate you jumping on board. Glad to hear from you. And I'm glad you are rocking with the content. And I appreciate all the support, man. Can't thank you enough. Rob Yu, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Rob Yu, writes, what up, Lou? What's going on, Rob Yu? Says, can't get enough of the reign of terror. How you pick an offensive coordinator before the coach is just laughable? Man, when I tell you we used to do things bass-ackwards, 09 is just hideous. But how we even got to that point in 08 with them picking the coordinator first, like, where they do that at? That to your point, like, that's asinine. What is that? How does that even make sense? If you think that makes sense, you need to wash your face and get your mind right. Like, who's doing that? So you're hiring a head coach and say, hey, this is your offensive coordinator. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. They were going to hire Jim Fossil, and they had him talk to Jim Zorn on the phone for over an hour so he could get familiar with him to see if he was cool. It's too late. You already hired him. I mean, of course you could fire him, but you already hired Jim Zorn. If he doesn't like him, what is he going to? No, I'm not going to take the job. Jim Fossil was desperate to get back in the NFL as a head coach, so he was willing to take the job. That was craziness, though. Pure craziness. This organization was laughable. I'm glad you're enjoying the series. Big Daddy Butts, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. BDB writes, what's good, LT? What's good with you? Does it bother you a little that this owner needs extra help to buy this team? The team? This bothers me a little. I'll put a pin in that. We'll come back. He needs help to get his $6 billion. Nobody else see a problem in that. If he can't get $6 billion, how is he going to get to build a stadium? So, first and foremost, this is the richest sale in professional sports history. So understand that. This ain't the $4.75 billion that the Walton family spent to buy the Broncos. This isn't the $2 and some change million that David Tepper spent to buy the Carolina Panthers. This shit is $6 billion. It's a lot of money, okay? And most people on this planet aren't walking around with $6 billion of income, disposable income, money that they can just throw at buying a franchise, right? So understand that he's very wealthy, okay? Now, the problem is he's got a lot of assets tied up in other franchises that he already owns. So he's not as liquid as the NFL would like him to be. So, and that's the problem that the league has, is that he's got responsibilities elsewhere, okay? Between the New Jersey Devils and the Philadelphia 76ers, he is kind of being spread a little thin. But, you know, with the help of all of these investors, he's got enough to do what he needs to do. And I think it's ultimately going to be pushed through. But so it's not a problem. Let me just say that. He's not broke. This isn't the Raiders with Mark Davis. We're not broke like the Raiders are, okay? If he takes over, we're going to have plenty of money. Don't you worry. We'll be fine. Now, as far as building a stadium is concerned, when you have to foot the bill yourself, then you need to be cash strapped and you need to be liquid. Like the Rams owner, Stan Kroenke, you know, was able to essentially finance that like $3 billion stadium or whatever it was in LA that they built. Because new ownership is going to come in here and establish a relationship with all of these different states, there's going to be a bidding war to get because think about how much revenue having a football stadium in your state is going to draw, right? How much revenue that's going to bring to your economy. No one wanted to do business with Daniel Snyder. He's gone, new ownership group coming in, and now you've got Virginia, Maryland, and DC all interested. With interest comes help. Now you don't have to build the stadium on your own. Now the city or the state is helping fund this endeavor. Taxpayers are paying on the stadium and paying dollars to help it get built. And that's going to, in turn, infuse money into the economy in that state. So he's not going to have to build the stadium by himself. So I'm not worried about the situation. I think Josh Harris is fine. I think that the NFL is a little bit worried that he's not as wealthy as some of the other owners around the league that they would like him to be. And I get it, but he'll be fine. He'll be fine. Sonny Rawson, thank you for the super chat. And let me just say this. That's part of the reason why Daniel Snyder is selling the team. He couldn't build the stadium. No one was going to help him build the stadium. He was going to have to finance that on his own. He didn't have the money for that. He had to borrow the money from the NFL to buy the rest of the Commanders organization away from the rest of the minority owners so that he would have 100% of the stake in the team. Obviously, he divvied up some of the he divvied up some of the shares amongst his wife and daughter and things of that nature. But at the end of the day, he had total control of the organization, but he had to borrow that money from the NFL. He didn't have enough money to build a stadium by himself without the help of a city or a town or a state. Yeah, right. Which is why part of the reason why he was selling the team. Josh Harris isn't going to have to worry about that. He'll get help from wherever this stadium is going to be built. Sonny Rawson, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Lou, I cannot wait for football to be back, man. When I start choosing to watch baseball is how I know I'm down bad. No disrespect to anyone that enjoys baseball. Nah, no offense taken. I get it. Once you get into the dog days of summer, basketball's gone, football hasn't yet come back on, and it's just baseball. Whew, it can be rough. It can be rough. Never fear, football is almost here. So you won't have much longer to wait. And man, I'm excited. I can't lie. Metaphor, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy Metaphor writes, shocked me that the NFL radio, Sirius, had our linebacker room as the best in the East. 16 points in their rating numbers. Number 2 was Dallas, only 12. Big on Jamin and Barton. I think that says less about our linebackers and more about the state of the linebacker position in the division as a whole. With Dallas officially moving Michael Parsons to defensive end, who do the Cowboys have at linebacker? Nobody, really, right? The Eagles lost pretty much all of their linebackers in free agency, so they don't have really any linebackers. We'll see if the kid they drafted out of Georgia a couple of years ago, two drafts ago, who didn't really play last year, is any good. But they don't really have any linebackers to speak of. They lost a lot of their guys in free agency. And TJ went to the Bears, and Kaiser White went to, I think, the Cardinals. So they lost a huge chunk of their linebackers. So they don't have any linebackers. And the Giants, they did sign my man from the Indianapolis Colts. Why am I blanking on his name? But outside of him, they really didn't have anybody at linebacker. So I just think it speaks to the lack of star power in the division at linebacker. I still don't know how the hell we ended up in first. Maybe we're the best of the worst. Maybe. But whatever. That's cool. I'm not buying it. That's for damn sure. We'll see what happens. I'm just as shocked as you are. Christopher McLaughlin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy, Chris. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Writes, hey, Lou, hope all is well with you and the family. Likewise, Chris, as always. Says, my confidence level is 5. The last 30 years has been consistently subpar to average. We need to be humble as underdogs, focus on execution and getting better daily. Thoughts? That's fine. That is absolutely a level-headed take. If you've been a fan of this team for 30 years, you've seen mediocrity play itself out year after year, with the occasional lightning in the bottle, win 4 or 5 in a row to wrap up a season, to sneak into the playoffs. But for the most part, you've seen a lot more bad than good. And because of that, you are in a mindset of show me. I don't want to hear about it. Don't tell me we're going to do this or that. Show me. I get it. Totally get it. Understand that train of thought and that position and stance. And I got no rebuttals to that other than this. This team, from a roster standpoint, is the best that we've had since probably 2015. 2016, I would liken this more to the 2015 season, because 16, we came into that season with more confidence and guys who weren't paid, who weren't as focused. Deshaun was on the last year of his deal. Pierre was on the last year of their deal. I don't think they were as focused. I think they were both 1 foot out the door. And so you didn't get the same level of focus that you had in 15 from this team, from that team rather. But offensively, we were as talented as any team in the NFC. Defensively is where we struggled. We weren't a great defensive team, and we didn't have a real running back either in those days. So I think Alfred Morris was probably gone by then, and that might have been some fat Rob or some nonsense like that we were, out there polluting the air with. But this team is, to me, as talented and well-rounded a group as we've seen them put together in a long time. I mean, because normally when we're really good defensively, like that stretch with Joe from 04 to 07, we were exceptional defensively 3 out of the 4 years. 04, 05, and 07, we were really good defensively. 06, not as good as defensively. Some of that I think might have had to do with the struggles of the offense, putting a little bit more pressure on the defense and them being on the field a little bit more, because the offense had made that significant change from Gibbs's system to Al Saunders' system. But nonetheless, we weren't as good defensively in 06, but we didn't have a ton of talent offensively those years, right? For as good as we were defensively, we weren't as good offensively. We didn't really have a stacked offensive team until 07. Going into 07, had Joe stuck around for 08, we would have had the best team, I think, talent-wise, that he had ever had in 2.0, but he retired before it could come to fruition because everybody was coming back healthy. You're getting a healthy Carlos Rogers back, and he was dynamic in 08 was Carlos Rogers. You were getting I still think your receiver group was really solid then, and they were carrying over from the 07 season. I felt like that last year there was some talent there, and that's why you saw us be able to kind of come together and win in the face of the tragedy of Sean and things of that nature, because there was enough talent on that team to overcome, an injury to Jason Campbell and rally around Todd Collins and play quality football. But this team has depth almost everywhere. And if we can get solid play out of the quarterback position and the offensive line is able to put the pieces of that puzzle together and make them fit and stay relatively healthy and perform at a good quality quality level, this team has a chance to be really good. And so I get it. A 5 is where you're starting, and they're going to have to prove it to you. And I'm not mad at that. It's a tougher schedule. There's a lot of uncertainty, new offensive coordinator, young quarterback, uncertainty on the offensive line. I get all of that. There's enough reasons for pause on this football team to make you say it's a 5 and they got to prove me otherwise. No problems with that. All of that is valid. I think this team is good enough, and I think it's a resilient bunch. I think that's the thing that I'm excited about. This team is proven over the last 3 years under Ron Rivera. If nothing else, if you have taken away nothing else from this collection of guys, this core group that they've put together, Duran and John and Terry and all of these guys that are core players on this roster that are carrying this team now. If you haven't taken anything else away, you should have taken this one thing away. They're resilient. They don't give up. They don't give in. It's not over until it's over. We've gotten off to poor starts each of the last 3 seasons. 1-5 in 2020. Ultimately 2-7 before running off 4 straight and getting to 6-7 in 2020. 2021, we started off the season 2-6. Go to your bye week and you're dead in the water. We've pronounced the season dead, a la 2012. Come off the bye and you win 4 in a row, including beating the defending Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Before the season unraveling, COVID, injuries, all of that good stuff. But they were resilient. They fought their asses off. Last year, same deal. You're 1-4 to start the season off. Thank God for the Chicago Bears. Our season was done. If we're playing anybody but the Bears, our season's probably done because that was an ass-tastic performance on that Thursday night. It just so happened that the Bears were worse than us. Doesn't matter. I don't give a shit how we got it. We got it, and it turned our season around, and we ended up winning, 6 out of our next 7 games, and we were 7-5 heading into that first Giants game. Are you kidding me? With the shit that we've dealt with at quarterback, that first year, we went through 4 different starting quarterbacks. The second year, not as much turnover at the quarterback position. It was pretty much the Taylor Heineke show. He did get COVID that 1 week, and we did have to throw Gilbert out there. But we dealt with some trash last year, So at the end of the day, 3 different starting quarterbacks last year, 4, 2 years prior to that, 2 different quarterbacks starting in 2022 or 2021. We're hoping to stabilize that this year. You're hoping that Sam's the answer. We don't have to go looking any further. We don't have to play musical chairs with the position. We can just let one guy take all the snaps, be consistent, know what we're getting. I like where we sit. This team fights their ass off. You add that resiliency in with more talent, more continuity, and maybe a little bit more luck. That I think we've been missing some of that luck aspect. Maybe a little bit of that bouncing our way this year. That'd be nice. That always helps. But hopefully we get more playmaking. That's the biggest thing. But I get your 5. I'm not mad at you for that. Calculated. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Calculated writes, New OC, QB, and playbook. I truly hope the first team is given more preseason snaps than previous years, which to me leads to slow regular season starts. It's a great take. We've heard it plenty of times, but in this new day and age in the NFL where the preseason has been minimized, a lot of teams going the practice route, which we are going to be doing with the joint practices with the Ravens, which is why I said, I wonder how they're going to treat the game, being that we're going to get 2 days of joint practices in with the Ravens. Are they going to treat the game as insignificant as we've seen other teams around the league do? Primarily the Rams and Chargers are notorious for disregarding the preseason. Seahawks as well, not playing their starters at all whatsoever, getting as much work as they can in with the team that they're scrimmaging or practicing or playing in the preseason game, rather, scrimmaging with them all throughout the week, getting reps there and not using the game for anything other than a showcase for their young players. I'm torn on the preseason because while I love getting reps in the preseason, I also am very leery of the importance of the preseason and getting reps. I think it needs to be meaningful reps. And what I mean by that is I don't like getting hyped up off of the other team's 2s or the other team's 3s. Because you go out and look, at the end of the day, you can't control what the other team does. You want to put your 1s out there, they want to put their 2s out there, then your 1s need to dominate. And that's the psychological thing that I don't like is if you can't dominate the other team's 2s, what does that say about your 1s, right? Then if you dominate them, that's what you're supposed to do. That's their 2s. So you're not really getting any credit for that either. The preseason, I think, can be overrated, but to your point, this is a new OC. This is a new quarterback and a new playbook in an offensive line that you're trying to figure out what 5 guys are, the guys that you need to be trusting with this group. I think the preseason this year may be a little bit more important. Keep in mind, you're not playing your starters probably at all. Rivera has shown us in his previous 3 years, he's not playing his starters at all in the final preseason game. You only got 3 of them now. It's not 4 like it used to be. So you're already minimizing how much exposure that they're going to get because of the reduction in games from 4 to 3, which I don't mind. Most people don't. That 4th preseason game is the worst product in the entire sport. And so you've only got really 2 preseason games. One of them, you're getting a joint practice throughout the week with the Ravens. So what are you going to do with the game itself? And that leaves I think the Cincinnati game is the second game. If I'm not mistaken. I may have my games mixed up. But I think Cincinnati might be 1, Baltimore maybe 2, and then the Browns are last. I think the Browns are last. I think. Whatever the case may be. Oh. I'm interested to see what they're going to do with the preseason. I've already said that, though. No matter what, I'm not as big on the preseason and, overexposing your players and having that not putting them out there enough, leading to slow starts. I'm big on putting your players out there in some capacity. They need to get some work. I don't know if them getting a ton of work is necessary, though. But I'm a big proponent of, hey, let's see what the 1s look like at some point. Even if it's just 1 game and it's 2 possessions. Let me see the 1s with some live bullets flying around in some capacity when they're not playing against their teammates in scripted plays. Let me see what they look like in some capacity. I'm fully against no preseason work whatsoever. And Ron's never done that. So I have no reason to be led to believe he's going to start that now. The question isn't whether they're going to play their 1s at all. They're going to play them. It's how much. Some of you want to see more of them than I do. I personally, I just want to see enough. First preseason game, 1 possession is fine by me. Unless it's a 3 and out and you want to throw them out there again, sure, knock yourself out. I don't need any more than 2 possessions in the first game. And in the second game, I'd love a quarter of work, really. You want to go a half, knock yourself out. I have no problems with that, but I just need a quarter. That's 2 possessions, cool. I'd prefer, if you go 1 possession in the first game, then I'd like to see 2 or 3 in the second. If you go 2 possessions in the first game, I'd like to see 3 or 4, and then that's it. Like, I don't need to see much more than that. But you run the risk of injury. We know all of the rules and parameters. We know the risks. We know all of the things that come with playing your players in the preseason. So you got to weigh the pros and the cons. I'm not one that needs a whole ton of work. I don't need to see them for a full half of football like we used to. The traditional way of thinking was first preseason game, you may see your guys, you may not see them, but a possession was usually how it went. The second preseason game, a quarter. The third preseason game was the dress rehearsal. That was a half. That's gone by the wayside now. I don't even know if there's a true dress rehearsal game anymore. I guess that would be the second game of the preseason now, but most of these teams are treating the preseason like an audition for their young players. They're not even putting their starters out there. So we'll see. It's hard to attribute slow starts to, preseason work or anything. I honestly don't know what the answer is to these slow starts to the season. I really don't know. I'd love to see them snap out of it, whatever it is. Reedy Davis, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Lou, our front 4 is going to tell the story of how our D goes. I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that at all. I think you're spot on. How our defense plays, I think, in large part will be due to the success or lack thereof of the defensive line. As they go, I think the rest of the defense will go. So I think you're right. They're the strength of the defense. No doubt about it. The way we feel about the receivers on offense is the way we should probably all feel about the defensive line. I'd argue that they're the strength of our team. Not the receivers, the defensive line. Because our receiver group, what do we go, 4 deep? You feel confident about anybody past Dyami Brown? I mean, obviously Jahan, Curtis, Terry, and Dyami are the 4 guys that, and some of you don't even feel confident in Dyami, so you may be just looking at 3. Some of you may like Dax as a receiver and feel comfortable with him. But with no Cam Sims here, you're probably 4 deep right now, confidently 4 deep. D-line wise, every one of those dudes are dogs for the most part, even the backups. I got confidence in James Smith-Williams. I'm excited about KJ Henry. I like F.A. Obata. I love every single defensive tackle that we have that's going to make this football team. The Bama Wall, John Ridgeway, and Fedarian Mathis. The strength of the team is the defensive line. So if they can dominate, and specifically when I talked last week about this defense and wanting this defense to take the next step, I was really talking specifically to the D-line and hoping that their dominance rubs off on the secondary. That's really more along the lines of what I was referring to. That the D-line take over ball games, get after quarterbacks, stuff the run, set the table, and the secondary and linebackers are able to eat after they set the table. Pressure leads to an inaccurate throw. DBs are able to feast off of that. And it goes hand in hand. You hear it all the time. DBs in the secondary play well. It helps the D-line. D-line plays well. It helps the DBs in the secondary. But it starts up front for us. Most teams, as a matter of fact, but specifically ours, starts up front. I agree. King of the North, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. King of the North writes, if our improvements at DB force the QB to hold on to the ball a fraction of a second longer and our pass rush improves slightly, then it will make a huge difference in sacks and turnovers. I agree. JDR has to blitz more and be more creative. You couldn't be more spot on there, King of the North, when you talk about the DBs forcing, because how many times did we talk about, damn, Montez almost got there. If he'd have held on to it a fraction of a second longer, that's a sack, maybe a forced fumble. How many times did we say that last year? How many times did we say that Duran had 11 and a half? How many more times that Kirk Cousins hit that you saw on the quarterbacks Netflix series against Minnesota? If he holds on to it a fraction of a second longer, that's a sack, bro. and I can think of 3 or 4 more plays like that with Duran where he almost got there. Fraction of a second longer. That quarterback has to hold it. It's a sack. Montez has double digits, if that's the case. Just a fraction of a second. He's got double-digit sacks. So imagine the secondary being able to hold coverage for a fraction of a second longer, which gives the pressure a fraction of a second longer to hit home. Imagine that pressure leading to more turnovers, more errant throws, because a fraction of a second longer, even if that quarterback's still in the process of throwing the ball and he doesn't get it away, but he's throwing it, now that ball comes out errant, or that ball gets tipped in the air. Now it's picked off. You know, that's something that I would like to see our defensive line do a lot more of. Just thinking about it. Get our hands up. You know, batted balls are priceless in the NFL. And 95% of the time, they benefit the defense. Rarely does a batted ball get caught and an offensive player run with it and it ends up being a big play for the offense. 95% of the time, if a ball gets batted in the air by the defensive line, it's going to result in something positive for the defense, whether it's an incomplete pass, which is a wasted down for the offense, or it's going to get picked off. Okay? So I'd like to see us get out. You're not going to get to the quarterback. It's a 3-step drop, quick getting the ball. Get your hands up. Get your hands up. Be aware. That's a great post, King of the North. It doesn't take much because our guys are getting pressure. This secondary can hold on just a little bit longer. I could see this thing really turning in our favor from a turnover perspective. And we're on the same page on JDR. I'm not asking for him to be uber aggressive and switch his mentality. He's not a super aggressive coordinator. He's proven that already. And that's fine. Be who you are, but pick your spots. And please spare me on the moon blitzes. You finally decide to blitz and you want to bring a safety from 30 yards back. Spare me on that. Okay? Like, make it make sense. Make these blitzes make sense. Find a way to utilize the guys that are adept at blitzing. Like Khalil Hudson is a really good blitzer. Use him in that capacity. Jamin Davis is a really good blitzer. Use him in that capacity. I loved our cat blitzes last year when we would blitz the corner. We had some really good cat blitzes last year. I wouldn't mind seeing those again this year. So just use the guys you have, use the personnel you have, be a little bit more creative. But again, do it within the framework of your defense. Like, don't go be somebody else. John Perez, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, JP, writes, Lou, good to see you as always. Likewise, JP, always a pleasure, man. Couple of things. First, I bought a Emmanuel Forbes 13 jersey as well as a Hal 14 jersey, 13 and 14. Are they smart or dumb purchases? Very smart purchases. Sam's, I think he's going to be a franchise QB, and Emmanuel Forbes has a chance to be, and I'm anxious to see what this rookie campaign for him looks like, Because again, I'm getting Champ Bailey vibes. I'm not saying he's going to be Champ Bailey and, you know, he's going to be a Hall of Fame corner. That's not what I'm saying. But Champ Bailey's first year, we knew right away we got something special here. 5 picks in his rookie season, a game where he had 3 of them. 1 went to the crib against the Arizona Cardinals on a Sunday night. Like, if we get that out of Emmanuel Forbes, and not necessarily a 3-pick game, but let's say he has 4 picks in his rookie season. Are you kidding me? That's tremendous. That's a tremendous impact on a team that had, what was it, 9? What was the number? 9 interceptions a season ago. 9. One guy gets 4. We had 9 last year, and that might have been divvied up between maybe 4 players. Kendall Fuller, how many picks did he have? He had 2 pick sixes. Or are those his only 2 picks of the season? Maybe. Maybe not. Defoe had probably like 3 or 4. He led the team, whatever he had. I mean, if Defoe had, let's see, Jacksonville game, he had a pick to clinch that one. Eagles game, he had a pick. Did he have a pick in the 49ers game? Somebody picked off Brock Purdy in the first half of that 49ers game. I don't know whose account to charge that to. I'm going to give it to Defoe. And I think, did we pick off Davis Mills twice? Fuller had a 3rd pick against the Falcons. So that's 3 for Fuller. 2 pick sixes, a pick against the Falcons in the end zone. That's 3. Defoe had at least 3 himself, if not 4. I'm trying to think of who else would have had an interception. Now that I'm thinking about it, Danny Johnson had one that against the Vikings that I want to say Juice tipped the ball and Danny Johnson picked it off in the end zone against Kirk. So that would be 8 if I'm charging 4 to Defoe's account and 3 to Kendall Fuller's account. So that's 8. There's one more floating around out there. Let's see. We didn't pick Dak off but once in the finale. We didn't pick off Cooper Rush at all. How many times did we pick off Jalen Hurts in that second game? They turned it over 4 times. They had the lateral at the end, the fumble by the receiver, Quez Watkins. Hurts was picked off by Defoe. And then we face masked the hell out of the tight end, and he fumbled. So that was only 1. We already gave that to Defoe. So let's just go through the games real quick. I hate when I go down the rabbit hole, but, you know, once I go down the rabbit hole, I'm like a dog with a bone. I can't let it go. So Defoe had one in week 1. We didn't have any picks in week 2. We didn't have any picks in week 3. We didn't have any more turnovers until week 5 against Chicago. Oh, there it is. There it is. Chicago. Boom. Jonathan Allen, ball skipped off of the helmet, and I think Jonathan Allen picked it off against the Bears. So there you have it. I think that is the final interception. Did Fields throw another one in that game? I don't think so. He threw that fumble. We got a 4th down stop. And they fumbled a punt. So, yeah. I think those are all the interceptions. So, Jonathan Allen, Danny Johnson, Defoe, and Kendall Fuller, I think, account for all 9 picks. 4 guys. That's it. That is shameful if that is the case. But if Emmanuel Forbes can come in here and, you know, 3 or 4 interceptions in rookie season, and that's huge for a team that only had 9 total picks last year. Yeah, I think this kid's going to be exceptional. I think it's a great purchase, man. You should feel good about it. Both of them. King of the North. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. King of the North writes, Ron got 7 to 8 wins with Dan Turner at OC and Heineke. Surely he can get 9 and 10 with Dan gone and possibly upgrades at OC and quarterback. Sound logic? Hell, damn right that's sound logic. Now, the schedule has changed. And keep in mind, in the 2 years that we were fighting for something, made the playoffs in 20 and in 22, those were 2 bad schedule years. In 21, the schedule was a lot tougher. It was the toughest schedule in the league that year, and it was one of the toughest quarterback schedules I think I've ever seen in my life. And we still won 7 games and was in the mix at 6-6 at one point before unraveling at the end of the season. So, yeah, there's something to be said about that. But also, there's something to be said about Rivera's inability to get over the hump. Maybe he is a 7-8 win coach. Maybe that's just who he is. And if not for Cam Newton playing at a MVP-like level, he doesn't win, more than 7 or 8 games. That's just who he is as a coach. This is the year that I think we may find that out. Again, you heard what Daniel Jeremiah said, and I want to bring that up as well. This isn't all about Sam Howell. They're not going to just roll the ball out and say, all right, Sam, like Scott Turner did at the beginning of the season with Carson Wentz, where we was throwing the bitch 45 times a game. He's not going to roll the ball out. All right, Sam, you're throwing it 40-plus times every week. I think they're going to manage the game. We're going to run the football. Sam's going to obviously have his attempts, and he's going to spread the ball around, but we're not going to be relying on the right arm of Sam Howell to win us the game every single week. There'll be weeks where, hey, Sam, I need it, bro. I need you to sling it 37 times today. There are going to be some games like that. But I think there'll be more games where he's throwing it 24, 26 times, no more than that. And that'll be the formula. Sam Howell, 19 of 25 for 207 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Like, that's what we're going to need from him. Sam Howell, 21 of 27 for 262 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Like, that's what that number needs to be somewhere. And I don't think you're going to see a lot of 24 of 38 for 331 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I don't think you're going to see a lot of that. There are going to be some games like that where he throws it 38 times, but understand that we're not going to be putting it all on his shoulders. So, yeah, to me, that's really sound logic. Better quarterback, better offensive coordinator. We hope. We don't know that for sure, but I think we feel confident that it's an upgrade in offensive coordinator. The bar was set really low. Better offensive coordinator and no Dan Snyder. That counts. That's got to count for like 2 wins by itself, right? No Dan, right? That's got to count for at least 2 victories. Sounds good to me. Sounds like some damn good logic. Double up. If I haven't done it already. Sounds like some damn good logic to me. I'm with it. JP, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. My guy, John Perez, right. Secondly, I can't wait for the 2019 Reign of Terror episode. That season was such a disaster. That damn Prince of Darkness was such a clown. 2019, I ranked 19 up there. We're going with just the 23 years of Dan Snyder's Reign of Terror, I ranked 2019 damn near at the top with 2009. The 3 years that are candidates for the top spot of the worst season are 2009, 2013, and 2019. So the thing that 2019 has over all of them is it was the worst record. We only won 3 games. So off of that metric alone, it'd be the worst. I think because we knew Jay Gruden was going to get fired anyway going into that season, that he really didn't stand a puncher's chance. And then it happened. And we said, damn, Jay, they setting you up to fail, bro. You on the hot seat, dead man walking, and your first 5 are brutal. Brutal. There was a New England in there. The Rams, I think, might have been in there. The Giants were in there. It was awful how they did that, man, the first 5. I was like, yeah, they trying to get you up out of here, man. They trying to get you up out of here. Sorry, man. And so Philly was week 1, and we should have actually won that game. We were up on those boys. We were doing them. And then for some inexplicable reason, we forgot who Deshaun Jackson was. Like he just didn't exist. Whatever. 19 was horrendous. And the part that made 19, you arguably, if you're arguing for 19 being the worst, is we had no talent on that team. Trent was done with us. Terry just came on board. We didn't really know what we had yet in Terry. That was his rookie season, but that was one of the few rays of hope. I mean, looking at the 2020 roster tells you all you need to know about what 19 left. That roster was horrible. You want to know why we lost so many games? Go look at the roster in 19. Yikes. That was gross, what we were putting on the field. And it wasn't much better in 2020. They tried their best. They went out and got J.D. McKissick, and they went out and got Logan Thomas, and they tried their hardest. But you're playing Dontrell Inman and Isaiah Wright at receiver. Oh, God. Yeah. It's rough, man. It was rough out on those streets. So, yeah, that 2019 season is pretty high on the list of ineptitude for sure. King of the North, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, King of the North, writes, July 20th, Lou. Can't wait. We get a second Independence Day in July. We better beat Arizona in week 1 in a packed stadium. Week 1 is going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy. The Cardinals have no idea what they're walking into. I would say that I feel bad for them, but I don't. I absolutely have zero sympathy for them. And I want us to stomp a mud hole. We will be out for blood in that game. And if Sam is what I think he is, and we got it clicking, and they got Colt McCoy out there, and that defense starts to smell blood, ooh-wee! It could get really nasty out there for them. Looking forward to it, man. Looking forward to July 20th, hoping that is the final nail in the coffin for Dan Snyder, and they finally, push through the sale of the team to the Josh Harris group, and we can move forward. If not, it'll be August 8th. It's going to be one of the two. And, man, I don't want to just beat Arizona. I want to destroy them. I want to make a statement out of those boys. Like, I want the rest of the NFC East to look and say, shit, we got into y'all. Y'all ain't going to do that shit to us. I just want that to be out in the streets. Put the word out. We back up. All right, that's what I'm trying to do in week 1. I want to put the word back out on the streets. These are corners out here. We run the NFC East. Put the word back out there. We back up. I'm trying to do that week 1. All right, trying to do that week 1. Should be fun. Bart Scott. Can't wait. JP, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, John Perez, writes, 3rd, what kind of owner are we getting in Josh Harris? And could he sell his stakes in the Sixers and Devils and just solely focus on Washington? I don't know what his plans are and how he, first of all, neither one of those teams comes remotely close to owning an NFL franchise. He knows that. He's a businessman. So what it really boils down to is How much does he love those other teams, and how much does he love owning? Because some owners, like, their true love is like basketball, for instance. Like Ted Leonsis, he loves basketball. That's his true love, basketball. So he's not going to sell the Wizards. He may buy other teams. He may be dipping his toe into other endeavors, but the Wizards will always come first for him. He loves basketball. Josh Harris could love basketball. And so the Sixers could be his baby, and he'll never give it up. And he just sees an opportunity to buy an NFL franchise as an opportunity to, strengthen his portfolio, but also this is a big money-making opportunity. The NFL is making money hand over fist. They print their own money in the NFL. So he's like, I got to get in on this. But, the Devils may not be something. He may love hockey, and that could be the sport that he loves, more so than anything else. Who knows? I don't know his upbringing. But I don't know what he's going to decide to do. But at the end of the day, we'll find out more about Josh Harris after he takes over this team. Trust me. The media is going to dig all up in his mix. They're going to want to get a piece of him. He's going to have to introduce himself. He's going to get a ton of questions. We're going to learn a lot about this dude. And I've already said that I feel bad for him, honestly, because he's going to come in and he's going to walk right into a shitstorm. A lot of fans want this. A lot of fans, because we're so fractured and disjointed as a fan base, so many different factions of the fan base want different things and are pushing different agendas. This faction wants a new name. This faction wants the old jerseys back and wants it to look more like a classic Redskins team. This faction over here wants this and he's going to come in and be bombarded immediately. This faction wants the team back in DC and won't be happy unless it's back in DC. So he's got a lot of shit that he's going to have on his plate immediately as soon as he walks in. And there's no way he's going to be right on all of this stuff. But as far as we're concerned, we don't care. Dan's gone, and that's all we really care about. We'll see what Josh Harris is all about. We hope he turns out to be a phenomenal owner. He sounds like he gets it. He sounds like he understands how to run a successful franchise and organization. We'll see. We'll see. Independent Outsider. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Independent Outsider writes, how underestimated are the Commanders right now? And is it because of the sale, past records, or both? Rooting for y'all, except against the Giants, LOL. Oh, we're very underestimated, but we deserve it. We've earned any disrespect that has been lobbied at us from a record standpoint. We've earned that. I don't push back against people that think we're going to be, 2-15, 3-14, 4-13. I laugh at them. Because even with all the shit that Rivera's had to deal with, including cancer and Daniel Snyder and quarterback changes and, OC who was situationally unaware, with all the shit he's had to deal with, he still won 7 games, a bare minimum of 7 games every year. So if you think somehow this year with more talent, better coaching staff, just an overall better operation, no Dan Snyder and black cloud hanging over here, you really think he's going to win less than 7 games? That shit just doesn't make sense to me. I think I seen somebody sent me a post that our Vegas number is 6.5. I'd bang the over on that because at a bare minimum we're winning 7 games, so I'm banging the over on that heavy. I think the number last year was 7 or 7.5, and I told y'all hit the over on that, and we won 8. Now I was talking crazy. I was talking 12. 12 games. 11 was really the magic number, but I was talking crazy. But you would have hit the over. You still would have won the money. If the number is truly 6.5 for Washington, go run to the window. You don't even got to run to the window no more with mobile betting now. Just pick up your phone, hit your app up, slap down a honey, right? You just slap down a hundo. Keep it pushing. Thank me later. If you got a rat, slap down a rat. And thank me later. Because we win in more than 6.5 games. Trust me. So, yeah, I think we're underestimated. Is it because of the sale of the team? Some people view that as a distraction. I don't, personally. I don't think most of the fan base does either. But people outside the organization probably view it as a distraction. These players, they don't care about that stuff. Guess what? They're still getting their check on the 15th and on the 30th. They don't give a shit about whose name is on the check. As long as their check cashes, it clears, and that direct deposit hits their account when it's supposed to, they don't give a shit. I don't think it's a distraction. I think the real underestimation just comes from Sam Howell at quarterback and the history of Ron Rivera and this team. We haven't won more than 7 games under Rivera. Rivera hasn't had but 2 or 3 winning seasons in his career out of 13 or 14 years as a head coach, whatever that number is. People run with that. People look at Sam Howell starting. People look at Eric Bieniemy coming over here. There's still people out there that, for the life of me, I can't understand why, that think we don't have any talent. So there's a number of reasons why we're being underestimated. But again, those who don't hear feel. So you can underestimate us all you want. They'll find out eventually. And I'm hoping they find out when it's too late. So it's more of the past and Sam Howell. Sam Howell. The lack of trust in Sam Howell for a lot of people. Not a lot of confidence in Sam Howell outside of the fan base. Big Daddy Butts. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. BDB writes, Lou, do you think linebackers going to just be running backs in a few years? More throw, less running, and that's why teams don't use linebackers no more, or are we the only one? I don't think the linebacker position will ever go away. All we've seen with the linebacker position, and like everything else, it evolves. Once upon a time, the running back position was the key and premier position in football. And so teams wanted to get the premier running back. You wanted to beef up the O-line so you could run the football. In order to stop that, you had to have these big, bulky block linebackers, 275 pounds and 260. But they were slow, but they were physical. That has changed. All right. Gone are the days of Levon Kirkland inside at linebacker. And here are the days of the 215-pound linebacker, the guy that can absolutely fly. And I think that era was kind of ushered in. Like Dion Buchanan was one of the first guys that made that transition from safety to linebacker. But really, I thought the first guy that did it really successfully was Ryan Shazier out of Ohio State. He came in and was a beast, and he was undersized, but he was so physical and so fast. And everybody was like, yo, I want my Ryan Shazier. And you've seen these tight ends get faster, and you've seen offenses evolve, and now you have to have linebackers that can run. And so the running game will always, as much as we try to minimize running backs and their importance in the run game, you will always need the run game in the NFL. Always. All right. Whether you don't use it until the playoffs show up, or you want to throw it a bunch of times, that's fine. You're always going to have teams that run the football in the NFL. Always. So there's always going to be a need for linebackers. And the key with linebackers is finding guys that can do both. Be physical at the point of attack, sturdy, get off blocks, make tackles, but also can run. And right now it seems like you're either one or the other. It's hard to find a guy that can do both, that can be 237 or 40 pounds, but still run and be able to hold up at the point of attack against a guard. So I think you'll continue to see the evolution of the position, smaller players, faster, to keep up with the changing times of the NFL. But I also believe that everything is cyclical, and we see these things go in circles and always come back around. I remember my first year doing this, you know, being a YouTuber and having a channel and being a content creator. I did a series, I think it was called The Return of the Running Back or something like that, because it was a little spell there where running backs were devalued. The position overall was devalued. There were only a handful of guys that you even looked at the position and felt like they were difference makers. And in that 2012 season, I think Adrian Peterson, I think he rushed for 2,000 yards, and you had other backs that were really good. And you were seeing teams relying on the running back. Like Adrian Peterson single-handedly carried the Minnesota Vikings to the playoffs in 2012, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, I think the linebacker position is safe. You're going to always need linebackers. We minimize the position because we don't have any really good ones, but because they like that hybrid safety linebacker and the flexibility that provides them with. Putting a defender on the field that can cover in space like a safety, but also be physical enough in the run game to make tackles, it gives you an advantage if you can pull it off. Gives you a really good advantage if you can pull it off. Big Daddy Butts, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. BDB, who writes, out of all of your years of being a fan, what was your worst year as a Redskins Washington Football Team Commanders fan? 09 was by far and away my worst season. 2013 was comical. It was messy. It felt like a reality television show. 2013 did. Every week there was some leak coming out about somebody, and it was from the Shanahans. They were being really petty that year. It was tit for tat. It was messy. But 09 was pathetic. We were a joke. And it was the first time I had ever, and if you watched Reign of Terror, it was the first time I had ever experienced being embarrassed being a fan of this team. It would not be the last, but the other times I experienced it, I was used to it already. You know, we had already sucked ass by then. So we had become a shell of ourselves. 09 was the first time where it wasn't okay to be out in the streets as a Redskins fan. You just lost to the Lions. You're pathetic. You just hired a bingo caller. We were a joke. You paid all this money to Albert Hainsworth. You know, it wouldn't get bad for him until Shanahan got here the next year. But yeah, 09 was the worst. 13 sucked, but 19 would probably be a close second. There was so much despair in 2019. Like, where do we go from here? We suck ass. But 09 was worse because, as I mentioned, there was no quarterback. At least in 13, we were still hanging on to the ghost of Bobby Three Sticks. Like, can we ever rekindle the magic of 2012? We just chalked up 2013 to, hey, man, he was coming off an injury. He probably shouldn't have started the season, off as the starter. He probably needed a little bit more time. Jay's going to come in here and clean him up and get him to be a quality quarterback. We'll be fine. There was still the hope of that. We were still chasing that ghost. 2019, again, there was still Dwayne Haskins. Even if you didn't believe in him, at least he existed. Jason Campbell was on his way out of Washington. Todd Collins was 89 years old. He was done. There was no quarterback of the future here. And as we know, in 2010, they traded for Donovan McNabb. So that was a disaster, right? So there was no hope. We'll talk about it on the next episode of Reign and Terror, but I was shocked that they even got Mike Shanahan. 09 by far and away. Swinging gate. Are you kidding me? 09 was the worst. The absolute worst. JP, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. John Perez writes, lastly, we're in great shape cap-wise in 2024. Could the new owners make a statement move for a star that could potentially be available? I don't know what their mindset would be. I mean, this is all new to all of us. Like, you don't learn an owner's style of leadership until you actually see it, working. And you see it. What's the phrase I'm looking for? You see it in action. That's what I'm looking for. Till you see it in action. We won't know what Josh Harris's style is. You can't just look at what he's done with the 76ers or the Devils and say, oh, that's what he's going to do with the Commanders. It's an entirely different sport. So the question will be, will he let his football people make those decisions, or will he be a hands-on owner that wants to be a part of the decision-making process? We don't know. We can't say, well, this is what, because he might feel like he needs to be a little bit more hands-on in basketball, but maybe in football, not really his thing, his expertise. So he's going to back off and let football people handle it. We don't know. We won't know until we see him in action. And as far as making a big splash, the biggest thing that we need to do is continue to take care of our own. So while we may be in great shape cap-wise, make sure you're taking care of the guys that you need to take care of. Make sure you're taking care of the next guys that are coming up that you want to hold on to. And if Sam proves that he is worthy of being a franchise quarterback potentially, then you're going to have to pay him eventually. And remember, he's not a first-round pick. So there is no fifth-year option. Sam's going into year 2. If Sam shows you that he's legit after this season and he starts to show you that again next year, you're going to have to pay Sam after next season. You can't wait until after year 4. You don't have that luxury. He's not a first-round pick. So just because you're in a great cap situation doesn't mean you go out and spend frivolously. Take care of your guys first, and if there's money left over and you want to spend it on a guy here or there, knock yourself out. But we'll see. We don't know what his ownership style is. Big Daddy Butts, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. BDB writes, LT, question for you. Will the offense score more points? How many games and by how many, or will the defense stop teams from scoring more points? If so, how many games and points? I've already said there's no way that this offense isn't better from a point production standpoint. We were awful last year. We were awful the year before and awful the year before that. Our biggest Achilles heel has been the inability to score points consistently since Ron has gotten here. And the defense has been solid. They haven't been great, but they've been good enough. They've given us opportunities. They've held a ton of opponents. In the 3 years, I'd say probably 60% of the opponents have been held to 24 points or less. I'd say of that 60, 47% of them were held to 20 points or less. Yeah, I'm going to stick with that. Of that 60% that is held to 24 or less, 47% were held to 20 points or less. Let's say 21. Say 21 points or less. They've given us a chance. It's what I'm getting at. So we averaged, 18.9 points a game last year? There's no way. There's no way. I'm not buying that this year. So, yeah, the offense is going to score more points. And I think last year I was bullish, and I was like, oh, we putting up, I think the number was 6. I think I put the number at 630 burgers last year. And I said there will be at least, I think I said 240s, 630s and 240s. Well, clearly that didn't come to fruition. There wasn't a single 40 last year. There was 130 was the Eagles game. And then we had the 27 against Jacksonville and the 28 against Jacksonville and the 27 against Detroit. So we fell way short of that mark. But obviously, as I've mentioned many times before, we let Carson Wentz down before he let us down. So who knows what would have happened if the offensive line would have been able to be solid for him. But I think the offense is going to score a bunch more points. And I got to see the offense to see what kind of a attack we're going to be utilizing and how aggressive we're going to be before I can say how many points we're going to rack up in terms of, 30-point performances, 40 and all of that stuff. I want to see how aggressive we're going to be. Because we could be going with a ground and pound approach and looking to, win time of possession, grind it out. I don't know. We could be super aggressive. We could not take shots down the field. The West Coast offense generally is not taking a lot of shots down the field. A lot of slants, a lot of short routes that give you run after the catch opportunities. So we'll see. Could still be a lot of nickel and diamond going on. But Ron said this, and I love it. One of the things he loved about the Week 18 performance against Dallas last year for Sam was a lot of the short passes turned into big play opportunities because of the run and catch nature of them. He put the ball out in front of guys with space to run, and they were able to take short catches and turn them into big gains. And you don't have to get chunk plays by always throwing the ball in the air 25, 30, 35 yards. You can throw a 5-yard pass, which is why I've been complaining about the lack of slants and things of that nature in the offense, because we've got guys that can run, that can make plays after the catch, just get the ball in their hands. So I think that West Coast offense will suit these players well. And if Sam can be extremely accurate like he was in that Dallas game in the short to intermediate, it's going to give us an opportunity to make big plays. Big plays equal more scoring opportunities. More scoring opportunities equals more points. More points equals more opportunities to win football games. So I think all of those things kind of go hand in hand. As far as the defense, we're playing better offenses. So I expect the defense, as I said in the 2021 season, I expect the defense to regress. I don't expect the defense to be as dominant unless the D-line takes that next step, or the secondary takes that next step, or they both take that, next step, and they become a really formidable unit. And it doesn't matter who we're playing. It doesn't matter that we're playing Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. You're not scoring, 27 points today. You're only scoring 24, 23, or 20. Doesn't matter that we're playing, and it usually doesn't with Philadelphia or Dallas. We usually don't give up a whole bunch of points unless we're unraveling by the time we get to them. Like at the end of 2021 when Dallas put up 56 on us. We had already unraveled by then. But generally speaking, if we're in our right, frame of mind, when we're playing those teams, they don't put up big numbers on us. I mean, and that's what family business is all about anyway. So thank you for the super chat, Big Daddy Butts. Atomic Ant, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Atomic Ant writes, who do you see as our starting O-line? Left to right, Charles Leno Jr., Sadiq Charles at left guard, Nick Gates at center. You have Sam Cosmi at right guard, and you have Andrew Wiley at right tackle. That is the 5 I see starting the season off. Will it end the season that way? I hope so. starts the season and ends that way. Usually the better offensive lines are the ones that have continuity, fewer, missed games between the guys on the O-line, fewer missed snaps for that matter. Let's hope that this offensive line stays intact and it's the same 5 guys for much of, if not the entire season. But that's who I see being the starting offensive line. GearCell1, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy GearCell1 writes, stand up and salute from Lefty Nation. You know what it is. They kill me for saluting with my left hand. So sorry to those of you who that offends, but I'm left-handed, so I take pride in my left hand, man. Just saw London Fletcher at Piggly Wiggly buying some Greek Kool-Aid. What is Greek Kool-Aid? What is that? Was that supposed to be green? Or is that a thing? Wearing some 1976 Jordans. Jordans weren't even a thing in 76. What are we doing today? Gear someone. With jean shorts and a tummy shirt. With a tattoo of Al Green above his navel. That was as random a post as you've had in a long time. That one was way out there. Kill someone. Bravo. That one actually made me laugh. That was a good one. Red Wing 0. You put out all the stops on that one. Red Wing 01. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, 2018 rain will be interesting since you never even watched the last game. Can't blame you. That season started off so promising, then fell off a cliff. Yeah, I didn't watch the season finale versus the Eagles that year. It was wet. It was nasty. The season was over. I was over it, mentally that year because, again, like you said, started off great with Alex Smith. We all knew that that was a house of cards. The offense wasn't really that good. The defense was taking advantage of bad offenses, and when they played any offenses with a semblance of talent, we got cooked. New Orleans, Atlanta, see those games that year. Hell, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers racked up with Ryan Fitzpatrick, racked up over 500 yards of total offense. They just turned it over and missed a bunch of field goals. So that defense was not good. We knew that, but we were finding ways to win. And then when Alex Smith snapped his leg in half against Houston, that was the beginning of the end of that season. And Colt McCoy comes in, follows suit, and snaps his ankle against the Eagles. And now it's a parade of who's who coming in at quarterback. And I still was amped for that Titans game at the end of that season. If you recall, Josh Johnson is in there, and his first game, he had just gotten there that week, and you knew it was limited as to what they could do, and he played his balls off. As a matter of fact, I want to say he might have gotten here the week before, and we beat Jacksonville. And then we had a Saturday game against Tennessee, and he played his balls off. And I'm trying to think of the receiver who dropped the damn touchdown pass. He had just gotten here probably like 2 or 3 weeks prior, and he dropped the damn touchdown, and Josh Johnson played his ass off, but we just fell short in that game. And that would have given us a shot in week 18, I think it was 17 then, to have a shot down the stretch. There was the Giants game that season. I was over it after that Giants game. Anyway, yeah, 18 is going to be interesting when we get there. John Perez, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. John writes, actually, Leon says loves the Capitals in the NHL. I think I've heard this from multiple people. I could be wrong, and you could be right, but I've heard that Ted Leonsis is a massive basketball fan. Grew up a basketball fan, loves the NBA, loves basketball as his first love. I think I even heard an interview in which he said that basketball is his first love. So I think he does a great job with the Capitals and, the promotions that they do, for fans. And I think it's a great product. But I think his first love is the NBA. I could be wrong, and you could be right. I don't want to try to sit here and act as if I know I'm an aficionado on, Ted Leonsis and what he loves and doesn't love. Fat American is back with facts and racks. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Feel like it's been a little bit. It's been a while, Fat American. If this is in fact you, head is on a swivel now. I'm expecting luck to be back any minute now. So head's on a swivel again. Yo, Lou, what's good, my man? What's good with you, Fat American? Hope you're doing well. I knew our D-line was good, but after rewatching some highlights, they're actually pretty darn great. Our D-line, and I'm assuming you're talking about the present-day D-line and not 05's D-line. This is a really good group up front. Like, there's no doubt about it. This group is legit, and that's why I'm bullish on them. Which is why I said, without a doubt, they're the heart and soul of this team, not just the defense, but this team. Our depth is impeccable on the defensive line. I think we're going to ultimately keep 9 defensive linemen, and I think 1 through 9 can get it done. Assuming that, KJ Henry takes the spot of Casey Toohill, and you're holding on to FA, you're going to keep 4 defensive tackle, and you're going to keep 5 defensive ends. If that's the number and not 8, it doesn't matter either way. I love it. So this line is legit, man. They're legit. Reedy Davis, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Reedy Davis writes, Lou, can Ron and staff last past a strong 9 wins season? No. Unless that 9 gets you into the tournament and you play bonus football and you win a playoff game as a 9-8 team or a 9-7-1 team and you get in, and then you do a little damage when you get there. Now, 9, let's say a 9-8 season where we start off 4-2. We go through a little bit of a slide there. We lose, 3 out of 4, and you look up and you're 5-5, and you finish off the season, playing quality ball, and you win 4 out of your final 7 games, and you end up 9-7. It's a solid season, or 9-8, excuse me. That's a solid season, but it's not good enough for him to keep his job, I don't think. So I don't think he survives a strong 9-win season, unless that strong you're alluding to means he made the playoffs and won a game. Yeah, then it'll be enough. 9 and a playoff berth. Even a loss in the playoffs, a hard-fought loss, and let's say that team eventually goes to the Super Bowl or is in the championship game, might be enough for him to save his job. I'm not quite sure that a playoff berth is enough yet, but a playoff berth might be enough for him to keep his job. Keep in mind, new ownership comes in here. They don't have to do anything. He's got 1 more year left on his deal. It's not like Ron Rivera's got 3 years left on his contract. He's got 1 more year left. If they want to just say, you know what, we just got here, we want to see what the hell's going on, go right ahead. Don't pay any attention to us. You got 1 more year left on your contract. Go ahead and play it out, man. Let's see where this goes. You ball out this year, we'll pay you. You don't? Hey, man, it was nice knowing you. We're going to have to replace you. So we'll see what they decide to do. We don't know. Again, we don't know what Josh Harris' style is going to be, running this particular team. Red Wings 01. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. I think this is a double up for you. Might be a triple, but double up, just in case. Red Wings 01 writes, honestly, Big Daddy is right. The linebacker position is becoming less valuable across the league but I actually did like our trio of Jamin, Barton, and Khalik. It's not becoming less. I just think that because the league is morphing into more of a passing league, and you're having these athletic tight ends come into the league, and you need linebackers that can keep up with them, and you're asking so much more of that position now, where linebackers were really stop the run first, and then, if you can, get into pass coverage. It's now the opposite. You got to play pass coverage, and if you can stop the run, that's an added benefit. Because if you can't play coverage and you're a liability in the run game, what stops me from putting a safety there and having him play linebacker? Linebacker is still important because you're still going to have to stop the run at the end of the day. And at your core, if you can't stop the run and you got to bring all these defenders up into the box, you're hurting your defense. You're putting your defense at risk. Not everybody plays the style of defense that we play. Some teams stay in that base format, and it's not a nickel type of base. Our base is nickel, essentially. For some teams, they play a base 4-3 where they have 3 linebackers on the field. I do think that linebacker has diminished in this capacity, that you're not seeing as many teams with either a 3-4 or 4-3. You're seeing a lot of teams with 2 backers like us, with 2 backers on the field, and you're seeing a lot more of the nickel package, whereas back in the day, you only got out of your base, which was usually either 3 linebackers or 4. You only got out of your base when the opposing team forced you to, by putting – sometimes teams didn't even get out of their base when you would put a 3rd receiver on the field. You keep your base in, and you just bump your outside backer over because he was the athletic. You bump your weak side backer over into the slot and say, hey, cover that dude. Or at least, drop in the zone underneath that route. Now you're seeing teams play a lot of nickel where they take that linebacker, that 3rd linebacker off the field and replace him with another nickel back. So it gives them more team speed defensively, which is what we do essentially. So I'll say from that standpoint, you're seeing less linebackers, but if you got dominant linebacker play, if you got guys that can run, if you got linebackers that you trust, they make a world of difference. So, that's why you saw the Bears ante up, because in that scheme, they play a cover 2, a classic Tampa 2. In that defense, you need your linebackers. You need a Shaq Leonard. They went out and they got themselves a linebacker that they think can be a game changer in Tremaine Edmonds. They went out and signed a TJ, Edwards from the Eagles. They value linebacker enough to go out and get 2 of them, not 1, 2 of them in free agency. So the linebacker is still alive and kicking, but it's evolving. It's evolving. And you're seeing faster linebackers come into the league, guys that can flat out run, still be physical and stout at the point of attack. So Fat American is back with facts and racks. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, which season is the worst? 09, 13, 14, or 19? Without a doubt, it's for me. It's 14 isn't even in this discussion, because you usually don't get the worst of anything in a coach's first season. You expect the lows of a first-year head coach when he's taking over a program that is in rough shape. Who expects a coach to come in and, like what the Giants did last year? That's not normal. Okay, that's an outlier. He's an exception to the rule. The Giants were supposed to suck last year. Most times when you get a coach in there and he's taking over a program that's falling on hard times, that first year is going to be a struggle. So 14 with Jay Gruden coming on board, I wasn't tripping, and most people wasn't tripping. He was brought in to try to resurrect Bobby Three Sticks' career, he couldn't do it. And McLuhan came in eventually, and they convinced Dan that we got to start Kirk. And that happened in 15. 14 isn't on the list. It's 9, it's 13, it's 19. Those are the worst 3 years of the Snyder era. And for me, it's 09 because there wasn't any hope at that time. That was the first rock bottom. There's nothing worse than the first. But you become more conditioned over time to accept, oh, we suck again. So you're not tripping as much. Oh, we hit rock bottom again. It's the third time. Okay. Thought it was rock bottom the last 2 times, but okay. We've hit a new low. Oh, okay, cool. Like you're not as, I was more invested probably back in 09, but I was also, that was the first time that we hit quote unquote rock bottom. And again, there was no young quarterback to hitch the wagon to. There was no Joe Gibbs or somebody coming to save us. At least I thought. I was shocked we got Mike Shanahan, honestly speaking. And I'll talk about that in the next video. But it's 09 for me. Because at least in 13, you're chasing the ghost of Bobby Three Sticks, as I said. And in 19, you got Dwayne Haskins, and you're like, hey, let's see what he can do in 2020. And not to mention, in 19, we got rid of Bruce Allen. So we were riding an emotional high there. Like, just getting rid of Bruce Allen's ass was a win in itself. Sort of like 09 was a win when we got rid of Vinny Serrato. What we didn't know is we were about to get into bed with the devil himself, Bruce Allen. So, a lot of parallels between 9 and 19. I think 9 gets the nod, though, because 9 was a joke, man. Like, we were really bad in 19, and we were 3-13, and the record speaks for itself. We were 4-12 in 09. So, but the level of bad we were in 09 and how many bad teams we played, the first 6 games of the season were all against winless teams, and we went 2-4 in that stretch. Including losing to the Lions, who hadn't won a game in like a year and a half. They went 0-16 the year before. They lost their first 2 games of the next season. They had lost like their previous 4 games the year before that. And you lose to them and allow them to snap their winning streak. Seemed like everybody was dumping Gatorade on their coach because of us. All the winless teams that couldn't beat anybody were beating us and dumping Gatorade on their coach in 09. Damn, you dumping Gatorade too, huh? Yeah. Damn, you dumping Gatorade too, huh? Shit. All right. You dump. God damn, you dumping Gatorade too? Yeah, there's a lot of Gatorade dumping going on at FedEx and on us throughout the 09 season. Nobody was dumping Gatorade for beating us in 2019. You were supposed to beat us. We sucked ass. So by that time, by 2019, we were those 0 and whatever teams. We were those bad teams. That's how we were viewed. We weren't viewed in that light in 2009. So it's 09 for me. Red Wing 01. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Red Wing 01 writes, Stan Kroenke may be the one owner worse than Snyder as a human being. But the fact that his NFL, NHL, and NBA teams all won the chip in the last year and a half has to be respected. That's real ownership. You don't have to love Stan Kroenke, and most people don't. As you've said, he's a detestable human being at times for some of the things that he's done. But he's got a lot of money. He's got a lot of power. He's got a lot of influence. And as you mentioned, our society has a soft spot, a weak spot for winners. We'll overlook a lot of shit that you do if you win. Be an ass and lose, and you're Daniel Snyder. Be an ass and win, and you're Stan Kroenke. That's the difference. One's a winner, one's a loser. The end. Red Wing 01. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, I just hope we get some of that with Harris and company. We'll see. That's the hope, is that we'll get some of those and things will start to turn around. The first part about healing is getting rid of Dan, getting new ownership in here, and feeling like this new ownership group gets it. So that's the first thing we got to establish. Because if he comes in, he's meddlesome, he wants to be involved in everything, and he's effing shit up, we can't say that it's Dan all over again, but we could be heading down that path. And nothing's changed. Just the name of the owner. But listening to him talk, seeing how he's run, these other franchises, the one thing that he's made mention of multiple times in the times that I've heard him speak is hiring people and allowing them to do their jobs. He said he's a people's person. He's a people's person. And he believes that any organization is about the people that make it up. And, hiring the right people, empowering those people to do their jobs at a high level is what he's about. And if that is in fact true, and I take him at face value, then he's exactly what we need. So we'll see. Red Wing 01, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Sam is a hill I am willing to die on. I can't say the same for any other post-Kirk QB. I was a Sam truther well before the draft. He'll prove me right. I'm pretty high on Sam as well. You had a 10. When I asked your confidence level in Sam, you had a 10. So you're a little bit higher than I am. I'm at a 9 on him. 8.5, 9. I'm gonna go ahead on the high side and take that 9. You're at a 10. So you're definitely willing to die on that hill. So am I. I'm willing to die on that hill as well. I've been high on Sam. I thought we got a steal when we got him in the 5th round. And I think the league is going to figure out they done messed up. They actually done messed up this time. So I think he's going to prove us right. I'm right there with you. I'm a Sam stan. So I'm hoping he goes out and delivers the goods. And if he does, it's going to be trouble for a lot of people. A lot of talking heads, a lot of people running off at the mouth about Sam. I got a lot of bullets over here, man. I'm just loading up the clip. It's a lot of damage I'm looking to do. So they better hope Sam isn't the man. Because if he is, it's go time. Anyway. Atomic Ant, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, having Dyami Brown can be special, especially with EB. We'll see. Dyami is putting in work. We've seen him. He's got the YouTube channel. He's posting on social media. He's got a rapport with Sam, definitely. I'm still mad that he let Sam down in the preseason last year, but I'm over that. He made some big plays in the regular season last year. I'm excited about what year 3 has in store for Dyami Brown. I really, truly am. I think this offense fits his skill set a lot better than the offenses that he was in with Scott Turner. I think there'll be more opportunities for him in this offense. And so what he does with the opportunity is up to him. But I'm really excited for this upcoming season to see what Dyami Brown can do with his former college quarterback as the starting quarterback in Sam Howell. So that is the final super chat, which means that's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T, here on the Command Post. You know what it is. Post up. take command. I thank y'all for joining me tonight. Tonight was a fun show. I look forward to chopping it up with y'all next week as we are knocking on the door of training camp 2023 for our Washington Commanders. Should be a very, very interesting training camp, to say the least. Enjoy your weekend. I will be flooding you with content throughout the weekend. Got a video or two coming your way over the weekend, so be on the lookout for that. I'm gonna try to get this last episode of Reign of Terror out for you tomorrow, as I am leaving the office for the weekend. So hopefully I can pump that out. I got a video for you on Saturday. I may push the Commanders log video, React video off until Monday. I may not, and it may be ready for you on Sunday. We'll see how I decide to handle that. But all in all, you guys enjoy the weekend, and I will see you guys next time. Got one more super chat here from Metaphor. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, Metaphor. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB Rights. Super Friends prediction. Fight hard, Lou. Can't wait. Oh, look, you know I'm going to hold us down. And so I'll be working behind the scenes to put that together, figure out what the right time is for everyone, and get that lined up so we can get these predictions out here in these streets. So anyway, I digress. Y'all have a good one. Take care, and I'll see you guys next time. God bless. Good night.